Britain's most ferocious sawbones. She's so anti-nanny state, she's been spotted chaining herself to Wes Streeting's desk, demanding the Health Secretary's job whilst waving a fistful of antibiotics she's nicked from the dispensary. Word is she's turned her spare room into a fortress of penicillin, refusing to dish out so much as a paracetamol until they crown her the supreme overlord of healthcare. Sod your prescriptions, she yells. I'll cure you with a shot of whiskey and a stern telling off. Honestly, give her the reins and she'd have the NHS running on fag ash and elbow grease by tea time. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer's gone from press darling to tariff punching bag faster than you can say Trump tantrum. Yes, a few weeks back, the papers were slobbering over his statesman-like glow. Ooh, look at Keir Starmer staring down Trump, what a legend. And now he's been humiliated yet again at home, as Donald Trump has whacked 25% tariffs on our steel and aluminium, hasn't he? Starmer's big response: I'm disappointed, but let's be pragmatic. Pragmatic? That's like saying, I'm disappointed my leg's been chewed up by a shark, but let's not be too harsh on the poor shark. Spare a thought, though, for Will Kingston, our right-wing libertarian hero from Oz, who's probably fumbling his Ayn Rand paperback in a sweat of tariffs from Trump. But I swore the markets were freer than a car boot sale on a bank holiday. And poor Kai Wilshaw, Labour's wokest warrior, must be having a meltdown this week. His beloved party's gone so far right, they're practically goose-stepping past the Tories. Slashing bureaucracy like it's a reality TV, Carl, hacking foreign aid to ribbons. And now, word is, Rachel Reeves is about to yeet benefits from millions into the abyss. Kai's probably sobbing into his ethically sourced quinoa, wondering if it's still OK to call himself a socialist, while Sir Keir Starmer's out there channeling Margaret Thatcher. Well, in some good news, Alice Grant is joining us tonight, making her debut on the show, I believe. Alice studied endangered archaeology in the Middle East and North Africa at Oxford University. And her degree may come in more handy than she previously thought, as this week we found W.H. Smith and Greggs are shutting stores left, right and centre, because apparently Britain's decided it doesn't need overpriced biros or bacon rolls anymore. Perhaps she can lend her expertise in the future, giving tours of the ancient ruins of the British High Street. Well, you all know the drill. Each host outlines their argument tonight about their chosen topic, and we all pile in and the fur starts to fly. And of course, as ever, we want to know your views as well. So send them in, all your comments, by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay. And don't forget, big thing, don't forget to ask your questions in Ask the Five. No topics are off limits. And don't forget as well, while you're there, to vote for your favourite topics tonight with Will, Renee, myself, Alice and Kai. Although Alice is missing on there, we'll get that sorted out shortly. Go to gbnews.com/poll to vote for your favourite five. We'll bring you live updates throughout the show. The votes will open every weekend, as it does, at 6 p.m. and close at 8:30, so stay tuned and we'll bring you those results shortly after. But before we start the punching bag of this show, it's time for your Saturday Night News with the brilliant Sophia Wensler.
Alex, thank you. Good evening. It's just gone 6 o'clock. These are your headlines. Sir Keir Starmer has announced military planning for a Ukrainian peace deal is now moving to an operational phase, with a meeting in the UK next week. The Prime Minister hosted a virtual Coalition of the Willing summit this morning, where he told world leaders to keep up the pressure on Vladimir Putin for an unconditional ceasefire. Representatives from 26 countries were in attendance, including Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky and French President Emmanuel Macron. Sir Keir urged world leaders to be prepared to defend a potential peace deal.
President Zelensky has shown once again, and beyond any doubt, that Ukraine is the party of peace. Volodymyr has committed to a 30-day unconditional ceasefire, but Putin is trying to delay, saying there must be a painstaking study before a ceasefire can take place. Well, the world needs action, not a study, not empty words and conditions. So my message is very clear. Sooner or later, Putin will have to come to the table. So this is the moment. Let the guns fall silent. Let the barbaric attacks on Ukraine once and for all stop.
In other news, authorities in the US have confirmed that at least 11 people have died in Missouri after tornadoes tore through central and southern states. The state's emergency management service has reported widespread damage across multiple regions. Meanwhile, around 138 million people are still at risk of severe weather in central and southern US states. Tornado warnings are in place in parts of Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Indiana and Kentucky. Now, staying in the US, the United States has expelled South Africa's ambassador for being a, quote, race-baiting politician who hates America. Posting on social media platform X, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said Ebrahim Rasool is no longer welcome in our great country because he hates America and the President of the United States. The rare move is the latest development in rising tensions between the two countries. Meanwhile, the Office for South Africa's president has called the decision regrettable, adding that the country remained committed to building a mutually beneficial relationship with America. And back in the UK, the Prince and Princess of Wales went head-to-head as they cheered on opposing sides at the Wales versus England Six Nations match this afternoon. It comes after they were spotted greeting injured players ahead of the game at Principality Stadium today. Kate, who is patron of the Rugby Football Union, and Prince William, who was patron of the Welsh Rugby Union since 2016, are both in attendance at the highly anticipated rugby game. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Alex.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back. You're with the Saturday 5 and I'm Alex Armstrong. And I can always promise you, as you know, that you're in for the liveliest show on telly. Well, just one quick view here from someone who's been writing in. Mark says, imagine Dr Renee as health minister in a reform government. We can but dream, I suppose. Yeah, indeed. Well, it's time now for tonight's first debate and I'm going to abuse the position of chair. So, you've got to hand it to the British justice system, haven't you? It's a marvel. A masterclass in bending over backwards for anyone that isn't a hard-working, straight, white British man. Just this week, the pro-Palestine vandal caught red-handed on video ripping up and destroying an historic painting of Lord Balfour has had their case dropped by the police. But somehow, the police can't find that person on video, who I'm sure was caught on CCTV. Also, how about this? They can track you down and knock on your door if you've posted something that criticises the Labour government on social media. Well, then there's the Just Stop Oil protesters. Those sanctimonious road blockers have had their jail sentences slashed. Roger Hallam, their eco-messiah, had his term branded manifestly excessive by a judge. Excessive? Tell that to the working man or woman stuck in traffic late for their hourly paid shift. The ambulance rushing to save someone's life. The planes grounded at airports. The historic paintings ruined. All because these criminals want to use their fascist tactics to force you to comply with their thinly guised communist agenda. And then, brace yourself, there's the London imam, preaching hate like it's an open mic night, calling for Jewish homes to be destroyed. He proclaimed in his hate-dripping sermon, "O Allah, curse the Jews and the children of Israel. O Allah, curse the infidels and the polytheists. O Allah, break their words, shake their feet, disperse and tear apart their unity, and ruin their houses and destroy their homes." What did the police do about that, hey? They twiddle their thumbs, scratch their heads, and declare it doesn't cross the legal threshold. Not hateful enough, apparently. Imagine this, though. Imagine a vicar or a priest saying that they're calling for Muslim homes to be destroyed. Imagine what the response would be then. But in fact, we don't have to look too far back to remember when Keir Starmer called for the courts to be kept open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for incitement to violence, do we? This is two-tier policing, two-tier justice laid bare with anyone with eyes to see. If you're waving a certain flag or chanting the right slogans, have the right ethnicity or religion, you're untouchable. A feeble hate speech gets you a hall pass. But if you're in the wrong kind of disruptor, say a white male, fed up with the chaos or the cabbie honking, the eco-warriors, you'll feel the full weight of the law, no appeal, no mercy. And that's not just hyperbole. It's now an undeniable fact, isn't it? The Sentencing Council's new racist guidelines, as I like to believe, unveiled what we already knew. There's one rule for you and another for everyone else. They didn't need to put the guidelines out because, let's face it, it's already common practice in our legal system, isn't it? And despite all her posturing about stopping the two-tier guidelines...
As somebody who's of an ethnic minority background myself, I do not stand for any differential treatment before the law for anyone of any kind, and there will never be a two-tier sentencing approach under my watch or under this Labour government.
Yeah, make of that what you will. Robert Jenrick pushed for amendments to Labour's bill to ensure the guidelines wouldn't come into effect. But guess who voted it down? The Justice Secretary and the Labour Party did. Wake up, Britain. You're sleepwalking into this Orwellian nightmare that cannot be undone, run by a juristocracy that is out of control. Kai, the Justice Secretary, should I say, has claimed that there will be no two-tier justice in Britain.
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing these sentencing guidelines coming out now. She said she'd legislate. The Tories put forward an amendment to that bill led by Robert Jenrick, and she voted it down. Why?
You and I both know this story is a joke.
It's not a... It might be a joke to you, Kai.
It is a complete joke. All these stories that you furnish to elaborate your ridiculous claims, actually. You know, the pro-Palestine vandalism case, that case has been filed because no evidence came forward. The Just Stop Oil protesters, you didn't mention what their sentences were cut to. There was one man jailed for 5 years. That was cut to 4 years. Then there were multiple people jailed for 4 years, cut to 3 years. Are you really,
What about
claiming...
the man in his mosque? Sorry, what have you got to say about that one? Burned down Jewish homes. What about that?
Let's actually come on to that one for a second.
Cases,
Hang on,
all these
Kai,
cases...
one second. I just want to come back because your last point was important. There are people who are in jail for social media posts for up to 3 to 4 years. They haven't had their sentences cut, and they're far less damaging than stopping ambulances in front of the road. So what do you have to say about that?
But Shabana Mahmood has already said that the Sentencing Council's guidelines are completely wrong. And actually,
why did she not legislate them? You're not answering the question.
And actually, I would bet you any money that in terms of the quangos that are going to be cut in Keir Starmer's cull of the arm's-length bodies, I reckon the Sentencing Council is up for it.
Can you answer me about the man in the mosque that said burn down Jewish homes?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the excuse for that?
As you know, I think that's disgusting.
Oh, OK.
But
you don't
what
think
the police said in that case is that actually they were adhering to the guidelines that they have to work to, and that it's for Parliament to decide where the line is.
Hang on a minute, but when somebody in the riots were going to burn down a mosque, they went to prison for saying that. But when it was an imam in a mosque, they didn't go to prison, but the police were adhering to the guidelines. I'm really confused, Kai.
Look,
yeah.
I don't follow these guidelines.
Let's bring Alice. Let's bring Alice. Welcome to the show, Alice.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I mean, the issue is, as you said, it's confusing because it's unjust and unfair. And traditionally, we have never operated in this country on a legal system which is so bitterly unjust, is in quite literally having two different sentencing approaches for different groups in our society. Where does this end? And the issue is that right now, you know, it's about things like race or where you stand or what kind of minority you are, but this could become something like increasingly concerning if we are just to divide our society and segregate people based on characteristics.
I could not agree more with you. It's extremely disturbing. Will?
I think the problem is because judges are out of touch with what the real United Kingdom actually looks like. I think probably half of them live in a very small part of Islington or Notting Hill, and they actually don't really understand what is happening in this country. I just wonder if there is a way to actually connect the judiciary, to connect, 60-year-old blokes who have, been sitting, in cushy judge jobs for the last 20 years with the real United Kingdom. I think that is the fundamental problem here.
Kai, what do you have to say to that?
Look, I totally agree. And obviously the legal system needs to have some grounding in actually what people feel in, across the country. But
But the issue is this, is that they can only sentence based on guidelines. That's what they're there for.
As they are, those are being changed by the Labour government.
Yeah.
I just don't really see what this two-tiered
is about. Let's not swear on television, come on.
That was close.
Well, apologies for Kai's almost use of terrible language there. We've got a rise of reply here from the police. A police spokesman said, "We recognise that this will be frustrating to many, but we police to the letter of the law, and we must weigh the evidence against the legislation as it is, not as some may want it to be. It is for Parliament to determine where the line is drawn, not the police." OK, now, a little bit of a change of tune here. We want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway, with your chance to win a whopping £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to win.
Spring has sprung with a Great British giveaway, and we're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
OK, still to come tonight is Labour just succeeding where the Tories failed. But next, shocking reports say NHS staff members are more likely than the public to be anti-Semitic. Is our sacred health service for the many, but not the Jews? You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News.
Full T's and C's apply.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in contact with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. Get your questions in for Ask the Five. And don't forget to vote for your favourite topic at gbnews.com/poll. At the moment, two-tier justice on 43%. We need to talk about Nigel at 28. Anti-Semitism in the NHS on 19. Labour showing up the Tories is on 5%. And criminals being protected also 5%. The vote will close at 8:30 and it will change as the debates go on. Very quickly, Grumpy Grandad, one of our favourites, has messaged in, "You're right, Alex, we are seeing two-tier justice. Our nation is being ran by a wannabe tin pot dictator, not very successfully." There you go. You heard it first here. Time for our next debate, though. Right. Who's going to take this one?
Be me.
Oh, Dr. Renee, why don't you take it away for us?
OK, so I was really sad this week to read in the Times that anti-Semitism within the NHS is on the rise and the biggest perpetrators of it are NHS staff themselves. As a doctor, it was unbelievable. Just imagine that you or someone that you love ends up in a hospital bed, feeling vulnerable, in a place that should be a place of safety where they're just cared for with love. Well, now imagine what has actually happened. A 60-year-old man, for example, was admitted into a London hospital, and when he was crying for help in his room, no one came. Then he realised why later, when stickers like the one you're about to see appeared on his window and on his bed, reading, "Stop Israeli Apartheid." That was on his bed. Imagine being, for example, a Jewish junior doctor trying to do your job as part of the team and someone gives you a hijab in the Christmas Secret Santa. Imagine being a junior doctor and being called a baby killer or a genocide supporter by your colleagues. All of these things have actually happened. Patients are complaining more and doctors are complaining more about their colleagues and their doctors wearing lanyards and badges that say Free Palestine. We've seen lecturers and senior staff wearing the black and white keffiyeh. All of these things are clearly designed to intimidate, and they intimidate Jewish patients more than anything. These awful racist attacks have occurred and risen more since October 7th, when Hamas committed their pogrom of the Jews. And frankly, we need to act now to expose these doctors, nurses, radiographers, whoever they are, and punish them. Being a doctor or a nurse or anyone else in a position like this is a position of power, a position of privilege, and it should be carried out without any hatred, discrimination or racism against colleagues or patients. None of that should be going on. I am ashamed of my colleagues for doing this. Why do the left just look the other way when racism is directed at Jews? Kai.
Goodness me, no. You and I both know there's no excuse for that kind of behaviour. And there's very little more I can say about that. We also both know that Islamophobia has been on the rise.
Oh, come on.
No. Let's have some respect. I totally agree that anti-Semitism is a scourge on our society, and it has been on the rise.
Why is your default response to that?
Actually more than Islamophobia. But both have been rising since October 7th, and we have to countenance both of those issues. So as much as actually the scourge of anti-Semitism is a stain in our country, we also have to consider all the different ways in which people are being discriminated against.
I despise this false equivalence that the left pulls out. I absolutely despise it. Oh, well, anti-Semitism is bad, but really we need to think about Islamophobia as if
that's not
you know
what
what
I'm
this
saying.
reminds me of? There was a BBC article, Alice, that came out that not that long ago that said, immigrants are saving the NHS. Now, while that may be true, there's some fantastic immigrants who've come into the country who have become brain surgeons and genuinely had really added value. Is this not showing now that actually there's that part of that is a terrible culture that may come with it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we've been talking about these sort of opposing belief systems within our country which are causing tension. Now, Britain has always historically been a nation which has been incredibly respectful towards other people's views. We are the home, this country is the nation of freedom of debate, of freedom of thought. But I am so distressed to see this crumble and turn into a sort of a nation where there's these factions which are just sort of seem to be fighting against each other. This is not traditional. And what I'm saying is that it could be the fact that there are extremist views on certain sides of the spectrum. We know this. I mean, we saw the quote by the Imam not too long ago flash up on our screens. That sort of rhetoric is so alien to the British spirit and to everything our nation stands for. So my concern is that this is being subverted by extremism and it's being allowed to take place. And if we don't stand up, we're going to see more incidents.
And for me, the real tragedy of this is that an NHS hospital should be a place of safety for everyone. And I cannot imagine a doctor sticking stickers on somebody else, of somebody else's religion's bed. I cannot imagine it. But this one group feels empowered enough to actually do this and terrify patients.
Why do they... Sorry.
No, go ahead, Alice.
I was saying, why do they feel empowered? I mean, we've heard this today. It's about the fact that they are not receiving justice as it should be.
You took the words out of my mouth. So, Kai, why aren't they? Why are they feeling so empowered? Do you think it's because the police are failing to arrest people who call for jihad on the streets, perhaps? Do you think the pro-Palestine protesters who climbed up Big Ben didn't really seem to have much controversy surrounding that from left-wing politicians? There doesn't be any coming from the left. No criticism at all?
No. The UK has always had a problem, actually, with calling out anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic violence and rhetoric. And that's something we have to countenance. But I don't think that's something new to this government and new since October 7th. So, actually, we need to look inwards, look at the rest of the population, rather than blame different factions, political groups.
OK, well, we have a right of reply here from the NHS. An NHS England spokesman said it is completely unacceptable for anyone to experience racism, discrimination or prejudice in the health service. All trusts and NHS healthcare providers should have policies to take place to take necessary action against any staff who have expressed views that in no way reflect the views or values of the NHS. OK, still to come tonight. Alice asks, are Britain's institutions failing its people? Does the rule of law now protect the criminal and not the citizen? But next, Kai, of course, says Labour are succeeding where the Tories have failed. Is he right, or have Labour gone far right? You're with the Saturday 5 Live on GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Lawrence brings some unsettled weather across western parts of Europe, heavy rain and some thunderstorms. A little more settled across parts of Greece, but temperatures are going to cool off. Highs of around 20 to 21 Celsius on Sunday, but turning much cooler through the middle part of the week. As we head further west, we can see there's plenty of showers, some of these heavy bringing in some thunderstorms, and Storm Lawrence just this low out across the Azores, bringing in some heavy outbreaks of rain later on Sunday and into Monday. Largely settled through the middle part of the week, but turning cooler for Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Aaron, this is a mad idea.
The future is bold. The future is hard, and it requires mad ideas. And we're proud to be bold and thought-provoking.
How are you going to make money out of this?
Well, the Olympics make $4.5 billion in revenue per Olympic cycle. And they're a wildly profitable organization that has never been challenged. So we're very proud to take them on and create something better and more efficient. It's not well known, but 44% of Olympians admit to using banned performance-enhancing substances, according to research funded by the International Olympic Committee and published in a top-tier scientific journal. It's absolutely rife. So 44% of elite athletes admit to using banned substances, only 1% get caught.
Would this not encourage the production of harder drugs, though? You know, steroids that go that bit further?
Absolutely, right? And the goal is to create an environment where research and development are openly celebrated rather than being done in secret. When things are done in the open, we can study those compounds, and the drugs that allow athletes to run faster and jump higher are the same drugs that will allow all of us to be younger and faster and stronger for longer.
If, as you say, 44% of Olympians are actually using this stuff anyway, secretly behind the scenes in a sort of hidden and unregulated way, would it actually look that much different to you or I sitting in the stand watching people run 100 metres? Would they actually do it much faster?
Yeah, because you could have athletes who are in their 30s, maybe even in their 40s, breaking world records. And we're already seeing that with our athletes that we have in training. It's absolutely exceptional. If almost half of Olympians are already using banned substances, they're doing so in secret. They're not using the best available compounds. They're not doing it under clinical supervision. They're doing it to beat the drug testing, not to optimize their results.
The People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. Get your questions in for Ask the Five. How could you miss it? And don't forget to vote for your favourite topic at gbnews.com/poll. The vote will close at 8:30 p.m. But now it is time for our next debate. And who is taking this bit?
It's me.
Oh, no. All right.
I know.
No, don't switch off, everybody. It's Kai.
And I'm going to apologise to our viewers because...
Wow.
I've completely lost my voice in the last 10 minutes.
They won't be complaining too much. It's okay.
I'm sure you'll be thrilled. But look, Labour have shown that the Tories were just actually quite useless at their job, right? Wes Streeting this week delivered a damning indictment on the Conservatives. And I think actually his speech in Parliament captures what I've been thinking, and I'm sure lots of you have been thinking. So let's see that clip now, if we can.
Diminished, are they? I appreciate it must be so painful for the Conservative Party. It must be so painful watching a Labour government doing the things that they only ever talked about, reducing the size of bloated state bureaucracy, investing in defence, reforming our public services, bringing down the welfare bill. The public are asking, what is the point of the Conservative Party? I bet they're glad they chose change with Labour. Yeah.
He's bang on the money, isn't he? The Labour government has achieved more this week than the last government did in years, reducing the state bureaucracy. Look, Pat McFadden, the minister who is in charge of reducing the civil service, has claimed radical reforms. He's going to be tying performance to pay in the civil service. 1 in 10 people in the civil service in the next few years will be in data and digital roles. Now, we're also investing in defence. We've seen the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War. And Keir Starmer is leading Europe and actually the world as we grapple with how to deal with the Ukraine and Russia war. Reforming public services. Now, Wes Streeting himself has axed NHS England. We're cutting out bureaucracy throughout the system. And let's not talk about the welfare bill. £5 billion cut out of that bill can only be a good thing. And so before this lot say reform can sort this out as well, give me a break. They can't even sort out 5 MPs, let alone a government. Reform are laughable. The Tories are useless. Labour is the change that this country desperately needs.
Well, let's see what happens in the local election. I think you might have to eat your words. But you said, he's cutting the biggest quango, and, I always applaud cutting bureaucracy, so I will say that's great. However, since they've come into office, he set up 27 new of these quangos, which, for the audience's sake, by the way, are publicly funded institutions that are basically the same as NHS England. So 27 new ones to replace one. I'm guessing they're all going to go over to those quangos. And so how are we really cutting the state?
Well, obviously...
Can you really claim that?
He needs to get rid of lots more quangos, and I'm sure we have lots more to come. But
Renee, do you think this is like Trumpism? Like he's copying Trump now, isn't he? He's becoming so far right, he's copying Trump.
He really is, because he's seen the popularity of it and he's very worried about reform. And we do have a by-election coming up, which is going to be very interesting. But if he did this, if this went ahead and 13,000 of these people lost their jobs, it would be the best thing that he did for the NHS, because I've been saying for years the duplication is criminal. I guarantee that what will really happen is, firstly, they'll look at the redundancy bill and they'll be terrified, and those people will just go into other jobs at the Department of Health and other places, and nothing will be saved.
I think this is a wake-up call for the Conservatives. I think they are facing an identity crisis. They're being outflanked by the Reform on the right. They're now arguably on certain issues being outflanked by the Labor Party on the right. I don't think you're getting cut through from Kemi Badenoch. If they don't very quickly discover their identity, they are going to fade into insignificance.
Alice, I think this is really important, isn't it? Because even Robert Jenrick said we should have done this when he talked about the NHS England cuts. Do you think Will's right on that?
Well, there's no doubt there has to be a rejuvenation and a regeneration of the true purpose of the Conservative Party, but I do believe that is happening. We have to also remember that conservatism is ultimately something deeply philosophical, and it is a truth about wanting to protect and to preserve our heritage. The Labour Party don't care about these principles. They have no idea of how precious our country is. They would easily take us back into the EU, and that is really some of the things that we're fighting for here. We're fighting for a future where our sovereignty is in our parliament, not just dispersed across probably international and supranational organisations, which the Labour Party would have it if they could.
But the reality is the Reform are now more Conservative than the Conservatives. Why vote for them?
I mean, but this is the issue. You say that. Have you read their manifesto? The Reform manifesto is all about big spending.
A quick word to wrap this up with, Kai.
Why bother with the Conservatives? Because they've been completely useless in government, and now, as Labour are actually doing things, all they can do is take pot shots from the side, because they haven't actually got policies of their own, because they're working out in these working groups that haven't actually been figured out.
I think
what on earth to suggest.
OK, we are moving on, because up next, making her debut, it's Alice. Alice, what have you got for us today?
Well, I'm going to be discussing a topic which we've already sort of touched on a bit in this panel. This is the rule of law and principally our constitution and the direction which it is heading. I believe that our British constitution is under threat more than ever by ideological forces which wish to subvert our heritage and what has always been the case in our nation, built up over centuries. And we'll start with just briefly discussing our history. So we have people like Locke, back sort of in the Enlightenment era, who saw the rule of law as sort of procedural. Then we have Dicey, a seminal text written on our constitution, who discussed more about the two main pillars of our British constitution, which are the rule of law and parliamentary sovereignty. Now, in the early 2000s, we've seen that shift. And I am going to talk about the ECHR because international organisations which have and take precedence and primacy over even the UK Parliament are a real threat. So what I argue essentially is that we need to have a real deep think about our constitution and our values, because if we're not careful, they will be subverted, and I think our Labour government aren't defending it enough. Parliamentary sovereignty is something that we deeply care about. The British people voted in Brexit to take back control, and that was precisely the main aim of Brexit. It was to ensure that we elect the people who are making our laws, and that they are being held accountable by us and not in some foreign court or some foreign jurisdiction. So ultimately, to protect our constitution, I believe that we should have a rethink about our membership of the European Court of Human Rights based in Strasbourg. This court has a doctrine which is called the living instrument, and essentially that means that it is subject to change whatever they feel as time progresses. That should not be the case, because this will result in injustices. And we've seen that now. There's been discussion about the issues surrounding our ability to police our own borders and further cases. Perhaps we need a UK Bill of Rights which we can create here and not have to rely on a foreign court to interpret articles for us. So, yeah,
Yes.
that's the tenet of my argument.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. I mean, we've been living under Tony Blair's Human Rights Act, which has basically handed control of our judiciary to activist judges, Kai. Is this Labour's legacy, and with the Tories just carried it on as part of the Uniparty?
No. I really am so glad for once on this show to hear something about the integrity of democracy and our constitution. Because actually, all too often, all of you are talking about the Labour government that was elected only, 8 months ago, talking about how they should be chucked out. I mean, we are delivering, the Labour Party is delivering, on the will of the people. And you can't just chuck that out, whatever you think.
34% of people.
Yeah.
Well, that's the system we have.
Yeah, I agree.
Listen,
and if you want to change it, then there's a democratic way to change it.
No, but actually, can I just say, actually, I actually agree with Kai, because this was the point. The point is that now, when mistakes happen, or where our government acts irresponsibly, they can be directly blamed. We can no longer blame our issues on the EU, as we used to when things went wrong. And that's a good thing. But however, with that responsibility that our government has, that means they have to also face the full effects of being held responsible and accountable for
I think
their
it's
decisions.
charitable to suggest that Kai had a point there, but nonetheless, the broad point that you made, Alice, is 100% right. And again, I think this is another problem for the Conservatives, with Kemi basically saying we need to take our time, we need to have an evidence-based approach. This should be number one for the Conservatives. Get out of the ECHR as the cornerstone of a new immigration policy, and yet they haven't been able to say it.
Listen, if I had it my way and I was Prime Minister for a day, the only two things I would do is, one, get out of the ECHR so we can finally deport foreign criminals back to where they came from, and two, rewrite the Human Rights Act and have a British Bill of Human Rights. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Renee?
The Equality Act for me as well.
Well, we'll repeal that too, why not?
Actually, why don't
triple
we?
whammy.
You know what we want to do? Repeal every single act that happened under Tony Blair or
Yes,
Labour government in the early 2000s.
massively in favour of that. We've been going downhill as a country since 1997. Dr. Renee, would you not argue that since 1997 we've just been piled on by bureaucracy? I'm glad to see NHS England are getting scrapped, but the ECHR is still hanging over us as an institution that's a foreign court, essentially.
You are absolutely right. You can trace all of this back to 97, actually, and Tony Blair. Even what he did to our children, convincing them all they had to go to university and they weren't worthwhile if they didn't. The extra civil servants that he pumped into the civil service to bolster his vote, the Equality Act, all of these acts, they've destroyed us and divided us. And you're right, scrap them all.
Well, they made fundamental changes to our constitution. And again, I mean, this has been happening, as you said, for decades. And it is atrocious to think it is by our own parliamentarians that have ceded away our sovereignty to international organisations.
Kai, why is it that Labour don't want to deport foreign criminals? Why don't they want to have a British Bill of Human Rights that enables the state? You're so you've been so pro-sovereignty today, so pro the British state having control, yet you want to hand the power to get rid of foreign criminals who've committed heinous crimes on our soil. You want to keep them here.
But Alex,
why? Just answer the question.
Which government has deported the most foreign criminals out of the UK in the last few years?
Well, listen, actually...
Which government?
But they're not...
Which government? No, which government?
Regardless of whether or not you agreed with the Rwanda policy, that's an example of something that was basically shut down
what did they do?
by a foreign court.
Which government?
OK, right, listen, we've got to wrap it up there, unfortunately, guys, but loads more to talk about tonight. And no one's defending the Tories' record here, by the way. Still to come tonight, the funniest meltdowns of the week in Triggered Tantrums. But next, Will asks, is it time for Nigel Farage to step aside and let Rupert Lowe run Reform UK? This is going to be a banger. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News. Don't go anywhere.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead into next week, for most of us it should be fairly dry. We'll continue to see some spells of sunshine, and towards the middle of the next week actually it will start to turn a little bit warmer. Reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure. It's not really going to go far over the next few days, but we still have this weak weather front, which will be a focus of some patchy rain as it sinks its way southwards across Scotland overnight. Further south, it's where we see the clearest of the skies, and under the clear skies, a widespread frost developing. Could see temperatures in the countryside as low as -4 or -5 degrees. Also, could see a few patches of fog first thing, but they will quickly clear as we move into Sunday morning. And then a closer look across Scotland, first thing, we will see a few showers just moving in across the very far north, but for much of Scotland it should be a fairly bright start to the day. That weak front will still be around across Northern Ireland and Northern England, so a risk of a few spots of rain here, and also a fair bit of cloud for the Midlands and parts of Wales, but the further south you are, a fairly bright and sunny start today, albeit rather cold. As we move through the course of the day, quite a lot of the country seeing the cloud bubble up. We'll hang on to probably the best of the sunshine across the very far south of England and maybe also parts of western Scotland. And that cloud will be just thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, but most of us remaining dry. Temperatures on Sunday similar to what we will be seeing today, highs potentially up to 10 or 11 degrees where we see the sunniest skies. Into Monday, a fair bit of cloud around as we start the day, but that will begin to break up a little bit as we move through into the afternoon. Best of the sunshine on Monday across parts of northern Scotland, maybe later on across East Anglia. And then it's really from Tuesday into Wednesday where we see increasing amounts of sunshine, and by Wednesday some of us seeing temperatures in the mid-teens.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Please get in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say, and don't forget to ask your questions for Ask the 5. But now it's time for our next debate. Who's taking this one?
By process of elimination, I imagine it is me, Alex.
I think it might be.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been over a week since Reform erupted into civil war, with Rupert Lowe being referred to the police. I'm not going to relitigate the allegations against him. Frankly, I think they are trumped up. I think they are grubby. I think there is very little substance to them at all. The usual caveats: Nigel Farage's popularity has got Reform to where it is today, and I think on balance he remains the best chance of electoral success for the party. But some hard truths need to be said at the same time. The first hard truth is that what they have done to Rupert Lowe, a good man, has been morally reprehensible. And if this is the way that they treat members of their party, they are not going to be able to encourage talented people in if there is a chance that if you get on the wrong side of Nigel Farage, you will have your character brutally assassinated, you'll be dragged through the mud, and your efforts will be discredited. The second thing is that it is very obvious that Nigel Farage over a long period of time has struggled to be able to pull together a winning team. It's a cliche to say, but it is true that Nigel Farage has killed more right-wing political careers than any Labor Party member in this country. He needs to show that he can actually manage a good team as opposed to being a presidential-like figure, which my instinct is secretly I think he would quite like. On the evidence of what we saw on TV recently when he answered this question in this clip, I don't think that he's learning that lesson. Let's see it.
People who've worked with you in the past would say, you're the repeat offender here, always having massive bust-ups with people. Here we go again.
I don't fall out with anybody. They fall out with me. You know what? Most of the team that I work with in this party are people that have been around me for over a decade. I am a team player. I do work with people. I do it for the long term.
They're not the words of a mature political leader, they're the words of a toddler. If Reform is going to be a successful government, not just win, but actually be successful as a government, Nigel needs to show that he can manage a team better. He needs to drop this messianic approach to leadership. They need to continue democratisation efforts. And quite frankly, he needs to behave better than what he has throughout this saga.
Well, look, our audience is really split on this one. Your say is popping off. Who have we got here? We've got a comment in from Not Far Off. For Nigel to step aside and let Rupert Lowe take over Reform is utterly ridiculous. How many more times does Nigel Farage have to prove himself? He's already made history with Reform. Leave him alone and let him do what he's best at. I mean, he's got one of the longest political careers in the current roster of MPs in Parliament, Dr. Renee.
I agree with that, Will. I think that Nigel Farage is who people vote for. It's who people did vote for. And if it weren't for Nigel Farage, Rupert Lowe would not have a seat. I agree it would have been better if they could have sorted this out in private and kept Rupert within the fold, because I think he's an excellent MP. But I think it's ridiculous to suggest he stands aside.
Alice, what do you make of this? I mean, this has really split the right at the moment. This debate. Do you think it's a lot of toys out the pram, or do you think there's some serious conversations that need to be had?
Absolutely serious conversations. Will, I thought you put it out brilliantly. I mean, the big issue here is, where do you see this going in a few years' time? And Ben Habib yesterday, I think, spoke really wonderfully when he said that the issue is that it's all good if you won an election, but then what about delivering? Yeah. And how are you going to deliver on your pledges if it's literally Nigel Farage is the party and that's it? And that is what Reform is. Reform is Nigel, Nigel is Reform. That is a massive issue in, as Will said, drawing talented people. They're not going to go to Reform if they see a party which is essentially tyrannical.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think we need to draw a distinction between what is electorally viable and successful. And Farage remains an electorally viable and popular character. But then, at the same time, you can't just be a presidential figure as a Prime Minister. You're the manager of a team. You have to be able to bring different people together. You need to be able to come up with, embrace different points of view. And you need to be a man manager. I'm not convinced we're seeing man management skills.
OK, Kai, listen, some people here have said age of Reform has said Lowe attacked Farage, not a team player. Some are saying that Nigel Farage has done the right thing. These are allegations need to be taken seriously. Had he not acted, he'd be in the public eye for basically giving in to potential allegations of bullying. What do you think is happening here?
He can't win, but this was also always inevitable. Reform needed to professionalise. They had a bunch of momentum after the last general election, and what they needed to do was translate that into winning seats, getting good candidates, and keeping party unity. They've failed on that count already. After 8 months with 5 MPs, to fail on that count, to not be able to keep that group together, I think that's shocking, and that just speaks to how terribly unprofessional they are.
Renee, I mean, would you not argue that this is something Nigel Farage had to do? He would look weak if one of his own MPs was openly rebelling, writing articles about him. I appreciate. I personally don't think the way this has been done by Reform is very professional. However, there may be something to say when these allegations have been investigated that prove Nigel Farage right, perhaps.
I mean, I think he was between a rock and a hard place. So I think he had to, because had he not, then people would have jumped on him and said, "You've got people in the party who are being investigated by the police." I think to call them unprofessional is a joke, Kai. They've come from nowhere. Yes, I do. Really? The Tice is unprofessional? Come on, be fair.
OK, well, loads more to come on the show tonight. More on Reform's future in the big interview as we look at whether the internal scrapping is going to harm their by-election prospects. This is the Saturday 5, only on GB News. You're not going to want to miss the next hour.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead into next week, for most of us it should be fairly dry. We'll continue to see some spells of sunshine, and towards the middle of the next week, actually, it will start to turn a little bit warmer. Reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure. It's not really going to go far over the next few days, but we still have this weak weather front, which will be a focus of some patchy rain as it sinks its way southwards across Scotland overnight. Further south, it's where we see the clearest of the skies, and under the clear skies, a widespread frost developing. Could see temperatures in the countryside as low as -4 or -5 degrees. Also, could see a few patches of fog first thing, but they will quickly clear as we move into Sunday morning. And then a closer look across Scotland, first thing, we will see a few showers just moving in across the very far north, but for much of Scotland it should be a fairly bright start to the day. That weak front will still be around across Northern Ireland and Northern England, so a risk of a few spots of rain here, and also a fair bit of cloud for the Midlands and parts of Wales. But the further south you are, a fairly bright and sunny start today, albeit rather cold. As we move through the course of the day, quite a lot of the country seeing the cloud bubble up. We'll hang on to probably the best of the sunshine across the very far south of England and maybe also parts of western Scotland. And that cloud will be just thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, but most of us remaining dry. Temperatures on Sunday similar to what we will be seeing today, highs potentially up to 10 or 11 degrees where we see the sunniest skies. Into Monday, a fair bit of cloud around as we start the day, but that will begin to break up a little bit as we move through into the afternoon. Best of the sunshine on Monday across parts of northern Scotland, maybe later on across East Anglia. And then it's really from Tuesday into Wednesday where we see increasing amounts of sunshine, and by Wednesday some of us seeing temperatures in the mid-teens.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Alex Armstrong, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Alice Grant and Kai Wilshaw. Plenty more to come tonight, including whether the Green Party leader, a woman, can define what a woman actually is. And Kai becomes the butt of the joke again over an unfortunate police fine. Whether Reform have shot themselves in the foot in the upcoming Runcorn by-election. It's 7 p.m, and of course, this is the Saturday 5. still to come tonight. Should we take a leaf out of Donald Trump's book and impose travel bans on specific countries? And the Amazon rainforest, get this, is being destroyed to accommodate COP20-something. Can you believe that? Then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Please send them in to gbnews.com/yoursay. And don't forget to vote for your favourite topic on gbnews.com/poll. 1 week, we will show you these results consistently. But I believe you can go on gbnews.com/poll to see them for yourself.
Winning.
Yes, for once I might be winning. The votes will close at 8:30 p.m. But first, it's your Saturday night news with the wonderful.
Good evening. Your headlines from the GB Newsroom. Sir Keir Starmer has announced military planning for a Ukrainian peace deal is now moving to an operational phase with a meeting in the UK next week. The Prime Minister hosted a virtual Coalition of the Willing summit this morning, where he told world leaders to keep up the pressure on Vladimir Putin for an unconditional ceasefire. Representatives from 26 countries were in attendance, including Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky and French President Emmanuel Macron. Sir Keir urged world leaders to be prepared to defend a potential deal.
President Zelensky has shown once again, and beyond any doubt, that Ukraine is the party of peace. Volodymyr has committed to a 30-day unconditional ceasefire, but Putin is trying to delay, saying there must be a painstaking study before a ceasefire can take place. Well, the world needs action, not a study, not empty words and conditions. So my message is very clear. Sooner or later, Putin will have to come to the table. So this is the moment. Let the guns fall silent. Let the barbaric attacks on Ukraine once and for all.
In other news, authorities in the US have confirmed that at least 11 people have died in Missouri after tornadoes tore through central and southern states. The state's emergency management service has reported widespread damage across multiple regions, but around 138 million people are still at risk of severe weather in central and southern US states. Tornado warnings are still in place in parts of Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Indiana and Kentucky. Now, the Russian captain of a container ship which crashed into a US oil tanker in the North Sea has been remanded in custody. Earlier today, Vladimir Motin appeared at Hull Magistrates Court, charged with gross negligence manslaughter in relation to the collision between the two vessels earlier this week. Filipino national Mark Angelo Pernia has been named as the missing crew member, who is now presumed dead. And the Prince and Princess of Wales went head-to-head as they cheered on opposing sides at the Wales versus England Six Nations match this afternoon. It comes after they were spotted greeting injured players ahead of the game at Principality Stadium today. Kate, who is patron of the Rugby Football Union, and Prince William, who has been patron of the Welsh Rugby Union since 2016, were both in attendance at the highly anticipated rugby game, where England beat Wales 68-14. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Saturday 5 with me, Alex Armstrong. I want to bring you some breaking news. The US has launched large strikes in Yemen as Trump promises overwhelming lethal force until the Houthis cease shipping attacks. He said the US has launched attacks in Yemen. Trump's promising that overwhelming force to happen until those shipping attacks cease. But moving on with the show, we'll bring you more on that if there's any other breaking news there for the rest of the hour. But tonight, we've got a big interview. For weeks now, the airwaves, including here on GB News, have been clogged with the kind of political soap opera that makes EastEnders look like a quiet night in. Yes, it's the endless saga of Rupert Lowe and Reform UK. But the big question, perhaps the most important question, is whether this bust-up has dented their chances of nicking a few councils. And what about Angela Rayner's devolution bill? That grand plan to redraw the map of England while cancelling votes quicker than a Romanian Supreme Court ruling. She's axed elections in 9 areas, leaving 5 million voters without a say to push through those reforms. Reform say they're fuming. They've been robbed of a shot at glory. So, to crunch the numbers and make sense of this bin fire, essentially, we're joined by electoral calculus polling data scientist Marwan Reich, joining us for tonight's blockbuster interview. He's here to offer an expert analysis of the data and its implications for Reform UK's performance so far. Marwan, fantastic for you to join us tonight. Thank you. Give us your overview then of how Reform is doing in the polls and what is it looking like running up until those very important, crucial local elections?
Thank you, Alex. So good evening to you and your viewers. The poll we ran between the 1st of March and the 10th of March for the Telegraph asked over 5,000 people how they intend to vote in the local elections coming up this year. And the headline numbers are that Reform are set to win the second most seats behind the Conservatives. If the elections that have been delayed were set to take place this year and weren't delayed, we would have actually seen Reform topping the poll and winning the most council seats out of all the major parties.
Wow.
So let's look at where Reform are doing well. So they would have done very well in Thurrock, but of course that's had a delay. When it comes to Reform's campaign in Doncaster, they're off to the races. They are projected to win Doncaster directly from Labour. Now, there is some bright news for the Conservatives and Kemi Badenoch. We predict that they will win outright 3 councils in Leicestershire, Wiltshire and Buckinghamshire. And we don't predict Labour will win any councils. But they didn't have many. They only had 1 council to begin with, and that was Doncaster.
Interesting. So it looks to me that sounds to me like these devolution plans have really put a pin in Reform, a big celebration perhaps to say they've won this year's council elections. Do you think the Tories will be able to claim victory now as a result of those councils not being able to have a vote on them?
It's a good question. I think they are in a much better position than they would have been had the delayed elections gone ahead. So there would have been elections in places like Norfolk where we would have actually expected Reform to win outright, and that's a traditional Tory heartland. So this is a blessing in disguise for Kemi Badenoch, and I think questions surrounding her leadership will be put to one side because she can claim, as if our predictions are correct, she will have won the most council seats of any major party.
And what about this fallout between Rupert's Lowe and Reform UK? Has that dented, in your opinion and your analysis, their chances of doing better, perhaps, in these council elections? And of course, after that, I'd just like to ask you about the Runcorn by-election as well, too.
Sure. So on the Reform Lowe Farage debacle, I think it's too early to tell. When you have national news about a party, it takes about 2 weeks for it to filter through to the data that we see. But let's suppose that 10% of Reform supporters are now put off, and rather than voting for another party, they just stay at home. That could mean they lose, in percentage point terms, about 3 points. And because of the nature of first past the post, that could mean them losing, or rather winning, 40 seats post-debacle, as opposed to the 150, 160 seats that we currently have them on. So I would say to your viewers, keep your eyes peeled, look at what the opinion polls are saying in the next few weeks, because we need to also take into account that this fallout happened last Friday, and most polling and surveying hasn't taken place since that date. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for what opinion polls are saying. If Reform dropped by 3 or 4 points, then it's potentially detrimental.
And just one final question for me, and I'd like I know some of the panel here would like to ask you some questions too. Final question, the Runcorn by-election coming up. How are Reform looking in the position they are in as of today? Obviously, we don't know what the impacts of this fallout might be, but are they looking in pole position to take that seat? And is this a big test for Nigel Farage's Reform UK?
It is a test. So by-elections are not necessarily representative of how people would vote in a general election, because it's how people can vent their frustration at the major parties. But in a general election, we would expect Labour to very narrowly hold that seat. And when I say narrowly, by about 2 or 3%, so it's within the margin of error. Now, Lord Ashcroft released a poll in Runcorn and Helsby a few days ago, which had Reform with a 9-point lead. That would be alarming. And there was a good post by a polling aggregator called Britain Elects that critiqued the methodology used because it samples a lot of people in Runcorn, the town itself, but doesn't ask a lot of the people who are living in the Cheshire commuter areas who are less Reform friendly. So I think if Reform win Runcorn handsomely, then they'd be on course to form the next government. If Labour narrowly win, then I think it's all to play for.
Interesting. Dr. Renee, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, hi, Marwan. I think that was really interesting when you broke down the changes that the devolution is going to make to voting intention. It was very interesting when it became clear that Labour were going to move these elections, that the Tories stayed very quiet. They said absolutely nothing. Do you think that was a deliberate ploy because this actually benefits them?
I don't know if it was a deliberate ploy, but it's certainly convenient for the Labour Party and the Conservative Party to delay those local elections, because with those elections being delayed, it will stop Reform, according to our predictions, topping the poll nationally.
Interesting stuff. OK. Marwan, I want to thank you so much for coming on to GB News this evening. This is really interesting. I'm sure we'll have you back closer to the election to see what that fallout between Rupert Lowe and Reform UK might end up looking like. Thanks for coming on tonight. And still to come, can the Green Party leader, a woman... Oh, we got a video next. Hang on 1 second. Let's have a look at that. A Green Party leader, a woman, define what a woman is. Kai becomes the butt of the joke again over an unfortunate police fine, and Green campaigners plough through the Amazon rainforest. Take a look at this.
While the rich dream of Nazi robots and swastikas.
Yeah, we've got this. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this one. It's this week's Triggered Tantrums, and I'm telling you, they're off the charts. But next, more on that developing story on US strikes in Yemen, and is it time for Britain to look after Trump and impose travel bans? You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News. Now, we want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway with your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to win.
Spring has sprung with a Great British giveaway, and we're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Tom Bauer is back with his latest book, The Fall of Fayed. And Tom, I don't know how you do it, but you produce these books and you learn things, and we learn things about very, very important public figures. And in terms of national life, I mean, this man was around in the press for decades. The battle to buy Harrods, onto his son Dodi and Diana being killed in that tunnel in Paris. What interested me was that you actually had the opportunity originally, a long time ago, to do an authorised biography of him. What happened?
Well, what happened was he offered me a huge amount of money to stop writing the unauthorised version. I got to know Fayed very well in the early 90s because of his battle with Tiny Rowland, who owned this company, Lonhro. And he helped me a lot in my biography of Tiny, which sold terribly well. And he loved it because he was very critical of Tiny. He put it up all over Harrods.
They were at war with each other.
They were at war with each other over the fact that Fayed had got Harrods. Well, then I tried to get close to him when he was doing the Cash for Questions. He was feeding all this stuff, how he bribed MPs and how he bribed all sorts of people. And I was in his office during the summer of '97 quite a lot in Harrods. And he showed me often the photographs of him and Diana, who was in the south of France, with him and Dodie.
Yeah.
So when she died, I rang up his office and said, could I go to the Ritz and see the people who'd been with her just before he died? And she died, and then he flew me across in his helicopter 24 hours later with his head of security. And I spent the whole day interviewing the people in the Ritz who'd been with Diana and Dodie and heard this horrendous story, how they had been sent with the drunken driver at Fayed's orders. But also I saw then how he ran.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Back immediately to that breaking news from America. The US launches large strikes in Yemen as Trump promises overwhelming lethal force until the Houthis cease shipping attacks. President Donald Trump has launched airstrikes on Yemen's capital, Sana'a, targeting Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. In a Truth Social post, Trump said the strikes aim to protect American shipping and restore navigational freedom, vowing to use overwhelming lethal force until the attacks on the vital maritime corridors stop. He added, no terrorist force will stop American commercial and naval vessels from freely sailing the waterways of the world. Trump also issued a stern warning to Iran, holding them fully accountable for supporting the rebels. This is the kind of talk that Americans want to hear, is it not, Will?
It absolutely is. It's a very strong statement. It sounds like it's the right thing to do. I think it is an underappreciated point that America maintains basically the freedom of the seas. And if you take that American influence away, global trade is hugely affected.
Exactly.
So this sort of message is very, very important.
Yeah, Renee, I mean, these are critical waters for the West, aren't they?
As it were.
As it were. And you know, Trump's whole recent, at least foreign approach has been to sort of, you know, step back from international affairs.
Yeah.
Is this the sign that he's willing to engage in the Middle East where need be?
I think it's an interesting sign in that he doesn't want needless wars where people are dying for no end game, i.e. Ukraine and Russia. But when we need to, as Will says, defend that shipping lane, which is critical. We saw how the Ukraine war affected international trade. These things need to be protected, and I think it also sends a really important message to Iran. And that's what he's doing. He's rattling their bars, saying, listen, stop.
Alice, as this is clearly targeted at Iran, as Renee said, are we starting to see a new Trump foreign policy evolve here, where he doubles down on his 2016 pledge to push Iran out of power?
Well, you know, this is really shocking, actually, and I feel very sorry right now for many of Republican voters who put their trust and confidence in Trump, thinking that he would be a moral leader, and instead what we're receiving is someone who is so war-hungry and is so brutal in his foreign policy, unafraid to basically use force against civilians. I mean, we saw him only a few weeks ago saying that he would raise Palestine to the ground. You can have a moderate view on conflict and understand both sides without the need for endless violence and death, which I think Trump is promoting.
How do you stop the Houthis then?
You don't have to kill civilians in that process. Yemen has been... There are ways, and it's called the law, and you know, if this has to be fought in international court, then it should be done in that process, not with needless violence.
The Houthis are going to go to an issue.
I'm just saying diplomacy exists, and that's something that Trump isn't interested in.
Just a quick word from Kyle on this one, because I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, because obviously Keir Starmer's got the new what is it, the group of the willing,
the coalition
of the willing. Thank you very much. Grumpy Grandad here has written in and says Trump doesn't mess around. That's exactly what we need from an American president. It's great to see. Would you agree with that?
Look, the problem with Trump's foreign policy is completely inconsistent, and that's what we were just talking to, right? On the one hand, he wants interventionism. On the other, he doesn't. Now, what's striking about this particular intervention is two things, I think. Number one, he's willing to intervene when commerce and US commerce is at stake, and as Will rightly says, this is a key shipping lane. And that's probably why he's intervened. The second thing is actually, as Renee rightly says, it does send a very strong message to Iran, a very weakened Iran. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if we see in the next year or so or less that actually the Iranian regime falls, not because of external pressure, but because of the groundswell from within the country.
I'm just looking forward to the Houthi terrorists suiting up and heading off to court for their day of, diplomatic, responsible problem solving.
Personally, I hope he obliterates them. I want my Amazon delivery, OK? Please don't forget to vote for your favourite topic in gbnews.com/poll. The vote is going to close at 8:30 p.m. Have a look at the results so far. Two-tier just on 50%. Sorry, I'm struggling to read this. We need to talk about Nigel on 18, anti-Semitism in the NHS 18 as well. Kai, Labour showing up the Tories on 1%, and criminals being protected.
It's all right. That's quite good for you, Kai.
Yeah, thanks. Luckily, I have friends.
Listen, you two can about to scrap it out because it's time for this. Oh yes, it's tonight's main event. Should the UK follow in America's footsteps and impose new travel restrictions? President Donald Trump is considering sweeping visa bans, potentially affecting citizens from 41 countries. It may even be 46, I've heard different numbers. In the past, nations like Venezuela, Myanmar and Angola have faced full or partial visa suspensions under similar policies. Well, with national security and border control in focus, some argue that stricter entry rules would protect the UK. Others warn this could harm diplomacy, tourism and even the economy. So we're asking, should Britain adopt similar measures? Seconds out, it's round one.
Yeah, I'll take it away first. Thank you, Alex, before we unfortunately have to go to Kai. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really simple. The primary responsibility of a government is not some misplaced notion of fairness. It's not virtue signalling. It's not some sort of morality tale. The primary responsibility of a government is protecting their citizens. And there's a very sad, uncomfortable truth here, and that is not all cultures are equal. In fact, some cultures are downright despicable. Data has come out in recent weeks suggesting that crimes from sexual assault through to theft, through to any number of different categories are disproportionately committed by people who have arrived from certain countries. Does that have something to do with race? Absolutely not. It has everything to do with culture. The fact of the matter is you cannot expect people who have come from a third world barbarous civilization to suddenly act as good Western citizens as soon as they hit the shores of the United Kingdom. Is that unfair? Is that unfortunate? Perhaps, but I don't really care. If it means that less young girls will be assaulted, if it means that less shops will be raided, if it means that the people of the United Kingdom are safer, then unfortunately this is the type of measure that has to be adopted in order for a responsible government to say that we are putting the citizens of this country first.
Yeah, I can't believe, but actually I sort of can believe that I heard such trash from Will just now. Now, the UK has been known to be one of the most liberal, open-minded, freedom-loving countries in the world. And yet, we're talking about tarring multiple nations, multiple countries, with the same brush. I cannot believe that, Will, you sit there and call entire countries barbarous cultures. That is disgusting. To talk about 41 countries across the world as barbarous, I just cannot believe that you would say that. And at the same time,
Somalia recently?
At the same time, let me finish, Will. This illiberal and racist travel ban actually doesn't apply if you're rich in the United States. I imagine if we implemented the same thing here under Will's presumed regime, we'd have the same situation. If you have $5 million or more in the US, you can have a golden visa. Yes, that's permanent right to reside in the US if you've got enough cash. So actually, isn't it just one rule for white people, one rule for people of colour, one rule for poor people, and one rule for the rich? Isn't that right, Will?
No, it's not. More moralising platitudes at the expense of any real analysis. You didn't actually address the fact that it is a statistical fact that people coming from some countries are considerably more likely to commit crime in this country than others. The fact of the matter is, Kai, some cultures are better than others. I personally think that a culture that practices female genital mutilation is an inferior culture to the United Kingdom, or indeed any other Western liberal democracy. And if you continue to have this sort of open borders migration policy, you import those types of cultural practices. Can we please at least concede the bleeding obvious, which is some cultures are better than others, and we should have a migration policy that acknowledges that fact?
OK, let's bring it in the panel here. And I frankly completely agree with you, Will. I think Kemi Badenoch actually did nail this one, and I think other politicians have said the same. Not all cultures are equal, and we're seeing a dilapidation of the British culture because we are importing people from cultures, unfortunately, that don't share our values, and that's being played out, unfortunately, now on the streets. Renee, what do you think about this?
You're absolutely right, Kai, that we have a rich history of accepting people as immigrants into this country, and we should be proud of that, absolutely proud of it. But you must remember that up until maybe 3 decades ago, those people were from Judeo-Christian cultures, and that is the difference, because we were all working to the same cultural values. We're now importing people who believe that if a woman gets raped and she tells somebody, she gets stoned to death in some countries for even talking about it. That's not how we treat women in this country. So how do you then assimilate that culture with ours?
I agree. That's a really difficult issue. But I don't think we should shy away from that and say, oh, well, it's too difficult, they're too different, and so we'll ignore it. Actually, the fact is, these people from those cultures are here already. We can't tar all those people with the same brush.
No,
and so actually, if there are people with quite different values to our own, then how do we deal with that? How do we handle that? What policies are we going to put in place to actually interrogate and implement people within our culture?
Well, Alice, I mean, we've had someone here called Dark. I won't read out the last because I think I know what their last name is trying to insinuate. But they've said, definitely we should have a banned list of countries not allowed to enter our country. Do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think that our culture is being dilapidated by foreign
I mean, there was mention by Renee of Judeo-Christianism, and I think actually the real root of this is going to be religious. Look, some cultures are worse than others. I mean, OK, that's a really dramatically simplified version of what's actually going on. The truth is, this country and this nation has always been Christian, and Christian values are Christian morality, which is love thy neighbour. These are principles which we held so deeply in our country always.
And family.
And family, exactly. So the issue really is not so much that, oh, you know, we're going to just paint a brushstroke over all Somalians, but actually the fact that if you are not Christian or if you don't have that Judeo-Christian foundation, how on earth are you expected to share our values and our culture?
Okay,
the majority of white
people. Let me just put this comment from one of our viewers. Hang on. The comment from one of our viewers, James Downey here, said, it was just announced under the recent crime figures that female sexual assaults are up by 28% this year. This is James Downey from gbnews.com/yoursay. And you are 70% more likely to be raped or sexually assaulted by a migrant from depending on what country they are from. Fact. What do you make of that?
How am I meant to respond?
Well, that's facts.
To facts that you... It's not facts. You're reading...
Well, what do you make of the sentiment, then? What do you make of the sentiment?
You're reading things out from something that somebody said online.
No, this was a Freedom of Information request on crime that was put together by GB.
But how is anybody meant to respond in a sensible, coherent way to things that you're just reading out from the screen?
This is a talk
show, Kai. That's the whole point of the programme.
Yes, but how am I meant to respond to
Well, sexual assaults are up.
quantitative...
Okay, Kai, listen, you're being evasive because you don't want to answer the question, which it's very clear you don't want to answer.
No.
Sexual assaults are up, particularly in London. There's one happening every 4 minutes, I believe it is. Why is that? This didn't happen 30 years ago. It didn't happen 20 years ago. It's happening now more than ever. What do you think the correlation between immigration being out of control and that is?
But you should know better than to say that correlation is the same as causation.
I'm asking you.
Okay, I'd say that I'd imagine there are a number of reasons behind that, and that actually there's plenty of reasons why one stat can be used by one group and another stat can be used by another. Now, I'm not going to get into a tit for tat as to whether that's right.
He's not going to answer the question. Typical Labour. Typical Labour is... Elaine has written it, Renee, and said, if we go to their country, we have to stick to their rules. They come to our country, they ought to stick to our rules. Do you not think that's correct?
Yes, I do. I also think that when we've got mass numbers coming in by boats, we don't know who they are or what they've experienced or where they've come from. And that is a worry, and it's not something we can easily manage when we don't know any of that.
OK, well, that's a very heated debate. Look, still to come tonight, though. You're not going to want to miss this.
Read out of political affiliation.
It's free speech.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, we're talking. It's good. All good.
This is one of the biggest meltdowns I've actually ever seen. It doesn't do it justice, but you'll see this week's triggered tantrums. But next, eco-campaigners gather in Brazil and flatten the Amazon rainforest to make it easier for themselves. Plus, is it time for Rachel Reed's Got a Grip on the welfare state? Alice seems to think so. You're with the Saturday 5 Live on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Lawrence brings some unsettled weather across western parts of Europe, heavy rain and some thunderstorms. A little more settled across parts of Greece, but temperatures are going to cool off. Highs of around 20 to 21 Celsius on Sunday, but turning much cooler through the middle part of the week. As we head further west, we can see there's plenty of showers, some of these heavy bringing in some thunderstorms, and Storm Lawrence just this low out across the Azores, bringing in some heavy outbreaks of rain later on Sunday and into Monday. Largely settled through the middle part of the week, but turning cooler for Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tom Pickup, host of the Really 007 podcast. Hello, Tom. Thank you very much for joining. I've just been singing Live and Let Die to myself for some random reason. So what's going on here, then? Is Bond going to be changed forever? I mean, Barbara Broccoli was pretty hands-on and tough with what happened to that.
Yeah, you've got to think that this goes back to 1962 when it all started with Sean Connery and Dr. No. Her father, Cubby Broccoli, got the film rights and began the franchise and the movie character we all know as James Bond. So it's a big change. It was always going to come to an end eventually. Barbara took over pretty much when her father died, before GoldenEye, when Pierce Brosnan was the new Bond. But she's really had all the control with her half-brother, Michael G. Wilson, who's the other producer on Eon, since then, since 95, really. And they didn't cast Pierce Brosnan themselves. That was Cubby's casting. Their real casting was Daniel Craig. And I think now that that chapter has come to an end, and whether you liked it or not, it had a very definite ending, maybe that's been part of the reason where they think they'd rather spend their time in retirement doing something else. It's time to pass it on. And they've got a ready-made partner already in Amazon.
Is it going to get a little bit woke, though, Tom?
I've no idea, but all I know is that Jeff Bezos obviously is head of Amazon. He's already put a tweet up or on X saying, "Who do you want as the new James Bond?"
Oh, okay.
So he's already including the fans, which I suppose is a good thing. Whether or not we'll have a say, we don't know. But I think what it'll be is what people want, what people on the outside see as James Bond, not necessarily super fans like me.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in touch with us, gbnews.com/your say. Get your questions in for Ask the 5. You can ask us anything. Just put them in there. Thank you for your messages so far, though. What have we got? We've got a quick, well, almost anything, yeah. We've got a question here. Elaine Higgins, did we read that out already? No, we've done that one. Martin says Trump's chance of a Nobel Peace Prize is in the toilet. And Shirley says Alice spoke well for an ideal world, however, an evil world, it's pie in the sky.
And also, let us not forget Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize and was the most war-hungry president we've seen.
But may I add, that's the thing, even if this seems to some people naive or even laughable, as Will clearly showed, I think that I will always stand by principles of justice and fairness over violence.
OK.
Sorry.
Well, on top of that, while you're at it, while you're putting these comments, they're flooding in there, so keep them coming. Don't forget to go and vote for your favourite topic at gbnews.com/poll. That poll is going to close at 8:30 p.m. The poll has moved slightly. Duty of Justice, 49%. You guys can see it on the screen. But now, it's time for this. OK, starting off with Will. What do you have for us today, Will?
I have one of the funnier, more sinister stories you will see. I had to check this story a few times to make sure that it wasn't satire. Basically, a large section of the Amazon rainforest, we can see it in the footage here, has been bulldozed to make a highway for COP30, the vain, moralising, environmental summit that they put on every few years as a way to try and kind of drum up some cash from eco-warriors. This is extraordinary, really, and it goes to show both how hollow the climate movement is, but also how the climate movement has completely forgotten about practical environmentalism. Things like saving the trees that used to be so important to greenies is now basically taking a backseat to climate mania. This is very funny, but again, I think there's a serious point here, and that is that the climate movement has lost the plot.
You know, as soon as I saw this story, I thought, what a scam. What a complete scam this whole thing is. If you can cut down trees that are going to carbon capture effectively, then how can you be taken seriously?
Alongside this in Scotland, we've just cut down a massive ancient woodland to put solar panels and wind turbines up.
Kai, what do you make of it? Is it a scam?
Carbon capture is a tree.
It's looking more and more like a scam, though, isn't it?
No, it's not a scam. Now, look, something like this, obviously, is indefensible. It looks so ridiculous.
OK,
but actually, let's talk about scale here, because the thousands of millions of hectares that are mowed down by agriculture and by professional loggers every year pales in comparison, right? So one road is nothing. However, obviously, it should never have happened. And there's other places that this conference could go. So it's ridiculous that this part of the Amazon had to be mowed down.
Wendy has just written in here, worldwide deforestation adds 16% to annual CO2 emissions. I won't read out the full thing, but there's clearly, she says here, net zero is an absolute scam. Alice, what do you think about net zero?
100% a scam. And it's not just about the trees, which I, by the way, completely stand by what Renee said. Carbon capture, I mean, we learn this in biology when we're like 7 years old. But the point is that if you look at other countries and the rate that they are producing carbon emissions, Britain on a global scale accounts for virtually nothing, especially compared to China, or if you think about the construction going on in Dubai. At the moment, it is ridiculous that our citizens are being punished by this really, egregious net zero agenda.
Always attacking the poorest.
Not our fault.
Always attacking the poorest. Renee, what have you got for us today?
OK, so in a second I'm going to play a video which actually reduces women once again to being a dress and a pair of shoes and how they want to live. We've spent years trying to get rid of these stereotypes, and here we are with a woman deciding that they can be used. Just watch this, guys.
I trust people to be an expert in their own gender. If someone has been living as a woman for 15 years...
What does that mean, living as a woman?
Well, it means what I've said.
Well, what does it mean? What does it mean to live as a woman?
I don't really know how I can answer the question again.
It's just so insulting to women, isn't it, that we have now been, you know, put on this pedestal as a bit of lippy, a pair of high heels and a dress. What do you think, Kai?
Look, there's always this gotcha moment, isn't there, where the right wing try to get the left to say, oh, is this person a woman? Is this person a man? As we all know, gender and sex are quite...
the same thing.
Fluid and quite varied.
You know what, guys?
And actually, I think that's fine for politicians to say that, but obviously Carla Denyer didn't do a good job.
You know what, I've got
It's
Kai, what is a woman?
I don't have an answer.
This is
I'm not a politician.
Alice, have you been... Say no more. Say no more. I think the audience know exactly what your answer's going to be. Alice, have you been living as a woman? Have you been living as a woman for a while, Alice?
A while. Maybe, yeah.
Was it from conception?
I think so, you know, when God made... What? Female or male? He created them.
Female at conception.
No, that's a myth.
Oh, come on. No, I'm sorry.
This is a myth that the left use that every fetus is a female until it changes into a man. No, as that sperm hits the egg, it's either a bloke or a girl. It's called XXXY.
Biology.
I think this is very simple. Very. It's already settled, actually. I think this debate, so we don't need to hear any more from Kai about trying to wriggle his way out of defining what a woman is. What have I got for you? Well, I've got the tariffs being slapped on Britain. Of course, Keir Starmer was heralded, wasn't he? Just a few weeks ago, the tabloids printed his picture out and said, wow, what a great job, Keir Starmer. How you've stood up to Trump, haven't you? You've avoided tariffs, you've got a trade deal in the works, and you've managed to negotiating very well around Ukraine. Well, the Ukraine thing fell apart in 24 hours, and a week after that, we've now been slapped with 25% tariffs on our aluminium and steel. So it's looking, to me, like his entire trip to Washington, D.C. was a complete and utter farce, wasn't it? And the press lapped it up. How embarrassing for our country to be heralded only for 2 weeks later to find out Donald Trump didn't think anything of anything that Keir Starmer had to say. Do you think these tariffs will end up being inflicted upon us, Will?
Well, I'm amazed that we still have a steel industry. I thought that was one of the first things to go with.
I thought Ed Miller had killed it already,
yeah,
right?
For the odd kind of, steel, the odd steel, what's a steel thing? A steel rod. Yeah, 5 or 6 steel rods that we produce every year, it may be a bit of a blow. But otherwise, I don't think that there is a big industry that's being targeted here.
I mean, Will has a very good point, doesn't he? Because our growth has just, gone down again by 0.1%, which doesn't sound much. And it was all basically in productivity.
Yeah.
Because we don't make anything anymore, because we've just sold it all off.
Yeah. Why are we selling off so much of our industry under this Labour government? Why is net zero being pushed so hard onto the poorest in our society, Kai, when we should be thinking about our sovereignty, as you've been banging on about earlier on? You wanted sovereign Britain, and now you don't want to worry about our national security?
One of the reasons why Donald Trump hasn't exacted massive tariffs on the UK compared to other countries is because actually most of our trade with the US is in services, not goods. We don't have a massive goods trade with the US.
But he has.
And so
he's applied a worldwide tariff.
Yeah, worldwide. But you're all making it out as if the UK has been singled out and focused on by Trump, despite all the diplomatic efforts by Keir Starmer. No, actually, what's happened, there's a worldwide ban, a worldwide tariff, and we've been spared lots of the more extreme tariffs that the EU, Mexico and Canada have been.
Okay.
So come on.
Let's move on.
Which way is it?
Let's move on. I think we all know the answer to this one anyway. Alice, what have you got for us?
So I'm going to be talking about Labour's welfare cuts. And, the debate has been quite strong on both sides. I think this has to be done sensitivity. I mean, there's talks of, scrapping welfare cuts, which could be for people who are genuinely in need. But at the same time, we do need to get people into work. And I just wish that the Conservative Party had been the one to champion this. However, there is still hope, and we have to see how things go, because we must remember that it is the Conservative Party which will ultimately stand up for for getting people back into work and to reducing taxes, which is the main thing.
OK.
I don't think Labour have said they're going to take away welfare from people in genuine need, and that they shouldn't. They absolutely shouldn't. There should be a safety net. But it isn't a safety net anymore. For many people, it's a lifestyle. And what we need to do, it's the press who are trying to pretend they're going to take it away from those genuinely in need. We need to define what illnesses you have that could absolutely prevent you from ever working. Once we've defined that, then the rest is easy.
And the elephant in the room is mental health. There are far too many people claiming anxiety or depression who are perfectly capable of working. That is the fastest growing category in sickness benefits.
Kai, listen, you know, your party's becoming more right-wing than the Tories, eh? What about that? Who would have thought that?
I'm sure you'd love that to be the case, but I think we all know it's not. Look, clearly there's a big cabinet discussion happening at the minute. Clearly there's a big backbench rebellion. There's going to be some accommodation in the middle. But it is right that we get people from a lifestyle of benefits, as Renee says, and I think there are a minority of people who are in that category, and move them on to fulfilling meaningful work.
Yeah, well, Susan's written in, Kai, you've let down so many people tonight. You said you were losing your voice, but sadly you found it again.
I'm sorry, Susan.
No.
I'm sorry.
Very good, Susan. Why don't you introduce us to your story?
We can keep this short, Susan. You know, there I was in Euston Station earlier today, smoking a cigarette, as is my wont, as I do, to my discredit. And I did, again to my discredit, throw it to the floor. Now, who would see me but a policeman? He stopped me and gave me this.
It's a non-crime hate incident.
A very long fixed penalty notice. Now, he had a machine that printed this out on the spot. He took my address, he took my postcode, I had to check. And what I meant to do, apparently, is pay £120 within 14 days. And if I don't do that, I'll be summoned to the magistrate's court. Now, look, I shouldn't have done that, but does throwing a fag on the floor really warrant £120?
Oh, I just can't believe it.
Fixed penalty
the man
notice.
that endorses non-crime hate incidents is now really upset that he's getting a bill for littering. OK.
I'll happily pay it.
Barbara's written and said, Renee is right about the lifestyle. No work ethic for a start. Alex, stop your disingenuous nonsense. Barbara, I don't think I disagreed with Renee, so I don't... Maybe it's a different show. Yes, maybe perhaps Alice. Anyway, still to come tonight, a butcher reunites a toddler with a beloved possession. Beavers. Oh, we love the beavers on this show. They're coming back, aren't they? And we will answer your questions, so get them in. But next...
Armed with a pickaxe and sledgehammer in Seattle's Soto neighborhood.
Well, they probably should be called Tesla tantrums at this point. Triggered tantrums on X, and you're with the Saturday 5. Don't go anywhere.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead into next week, for most of us it should be fairly dry. We'll continue to see some spells of sunshine, and towards the middle of the next week, actually, it will start to turn a little bit warmer. Reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure. It's not really going to go far over the next few days, but we still have this weak weather front, which will be a focus of some patchy rain as it sinks its way southwards across Scotland overnight. Further south, that's where we see the clearest of the skies, and under the clear skies, a widespread frost developing could see temperatures in the countryside as low as -4 or -5 degrees. Also, good to see a few patches of fog first thing, but they will quickly clear as we move into Sunday morning. And then a closer look across Scotland, first thing, we will see a few showers just moving in across the very far north, but for much of Scotland it should be a fairly bright start to the day. That weak front will still be around across Northern Ireland and Northern England, so a risk of a few spots of rain here, and also a fair bit of cloud for the Midlands and parts of Wales, but the further south you are, a fairly bright and sunny start today, albeit rather cold. As we move through the course of the day, quite a lot of the country seeing the cloud bubble up. We'll hang on to probably the best of the sunshine across the very far south of England and maybe also parts of western Scotland. And that cloud will be just thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, but most of us remaining dry. Temperatures on Sunday similar to what we will be seeing today, highs potentially up to 10 or 11 degrees where we see the sunniest skies. Into Monday, a fair bit of cloud around as we start the day, but that will begin to break up a little bit as we move through into the afternoon. Best of the sunshine on Monday across parts of northern Scotland, maybe later on across East Anglia. And then it's really from Tuesday into Wednesday where we see increasing amounts of sunshine, and by Wednesday, some of us seeing temperatures in the mid-teens.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Yeah, welcome back to the Saturday 5. Coming up from 8 p.m, it's Ask the 5. Please send your questions through to gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to vote for your favourite topic tonight in the GB News poll. It's going to close at 8:30. All right, folks, it's now time for Triggered Tantrums. This is the best in the week's huffing, puffing and blowing absolutely nothing down. If you thought toddlers were dramatic, just wait until you see this lot. Will, come on, what have you got for us?
Yeah, I can't just quickly, before we go on, can I just read this comment from Vinny? Love the Guardian reading, sandal wearing, tofu eating, champagne socialist lefty got whacked 120 quid for littering. Brilliant. Thank you, Vinny, I agree.
Okay.
We will go straight to the triggered tantrum of a man in the US who did something very interesting when he bought a new Tesla.
Armed with a pickaxe and sledgehammer in Seattle's Soto neighborhood, these two fellas went to town on this Tesla. The car was left in shambles with shattered windows, massive punctures, and tons of anti-Elon Musk graffiti.
We don't like what Elon Musk is doing.
This man would only give me his first name.
Greg.
Tesla derangement syndrome.
On you, Greg. Keep in mind, he bought the Tesla, giving Elon Musk the money to then destroy it.
OK, Renee?
OK, so sticking on the Tesla theme, this week at Wesler, this is what Just Stop Oil protesters did to the man who makes electric cars. Run the clip.
While the rich dream of Nazi robots and swastikas, what the rest of us need is warm housing, clean and affordable energy, and cheap public transportation.
Yeah, that's a liquid latex, I believe it is, which is a derivative of oil, for anyone who wants to know. It's just completely ironic considering they want to save the planet.
And Nazi robots.
These people are just absolutely insane. Well, do you know what? Why don't I just show you this clip rather than introduce it? Go ahead, guys.
Out of political affiliation.
It's free speech.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, we're talking. It's good. All good.
You want to give your thoughts? It's just a U.S. flag with the hunter stuff. It's a hunter's hat. It's no political. I promise.
It looks political.
It's not political. I promise. This is just a brand.
Why are you wearing it then?
Because it's cold. So it's Cabela's. You never heard of Cabela's?
Oh yes, I've heard.
Yeah. So like.
I've also seen the flag used in ways that's very disrespectful.
Yeah, this woman absolutely... I mean, there's a really long clip, so go and have a look at it online, and she starts going, she can't win the debate. It's genuinely hilarious. Yeah, but these people will make an argument out of absolutely nothing. They'll see something that they think is shocking to them, just like a flag, and they just really can't... They really can't have their... There's no common sense left in the world.
He says it's not political, so then she says it should be, but surely she was criticising him for wearing something that she thought was political.
Yeah, incredible stuff. I mean, going back to the Tesla stuff, we've seen across London, obviously, loads of these Elon Musk ads, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But, you know, this Elon Musk derangement syndrome is just something really severe. People are putting stickers on the back of their cars in the UK saying, sorry, I bought this. Anyway, now, don't go anywhere. Coming up, it's a Saturday 5 Extra, and we're going to let our hair down. Anything can happen. We've got to move to the sofa, guys. Come on, let's have a little move over. Ladies first.
be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead into next week, for most of us it should be fairly dry. We'll continue to see some spells of sunshine, and towards the middle of the next week actually it will start to turn a little bit warmer. Reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure. It's not really going to go far over the next few days, but we still have this weak weather front, which will be a focus of some patchy rain as it sinks its way southwards across Scotland overnight. Further south, that's where we see the clearest of the skies, and under the clear skies, a widespread frost developing. Could see temperatures in the countryside as low as -4 or -5 degrees. Also, good to see a few patches of fog first thing, but they will quickly clear as we move into Sunday morning. And then a closer look across Scotland. First thing, we will see a few showers just moving in across the very far north, but for much of Scotland it should be a fairly bright start to the day. That weak front will still be around across Northern Ireland and Northern England, so a risk of a few spots of rain here, and also a fair bit of cloud for the Midlands and parts of Wales. But the further south you are, a fairly bright and sunny start today, albeit rather cold. As we move through the course of the day, quite a lot of the country seeing the cloud bubble up. We'll hang on to probably the best of the sunshine across the very far south of England and maybe also parts of western Scotland. And that cloud will be just thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, but most of us remaining dry. Temperatures on Sunday similar to what we will be seeing today. Highs potentially up to 10 or 11 degrees where we see the sunniest skies. Into Monday, a fair bit of cloud around as we start the day, but that will begin to break up a little bit as we move through into the afternoon. Best of the sunshine on Monday across parts of northern Scotland, maybe later on across East Anglia. And then it's really from Tuesday into Wednesday where we see increasing amounts of sunshine, and by Wednesday some of us seeing temperatures in the mid-teens.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner of the Great British Giveaway, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag, and not one, but two sought-after designer watches, so you can style it out this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Yes, it's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5 Extra. I'm Alex Armstrong, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Alice Grant, and Kai Wilshaw. Plenty more to come tonight, including bizarre protests in London against Elon Musk. The great British public want to bring back beavers. Remember that saying from COVID, bring back beavers. And some numpties seem to think numpty is discriminatory. It's 8 p.m. This is Saturday 5 Extra. Yeah, still to come tonight. Renee has a story about a toy elephant. Will pays his tributes to his historic hero. More triggered tantrums, which you're not going to want to miss. And then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Please send them into gbnews.com/yoursay. And don't forget, it's time to vote for your favourite 5 topic at gbnews.com/poll. That is closing momentarily in the next half an hour. And this is Saturday 5 only on GB News. Anyway, let's get cracking on with your questions. This is the Ask the Five. Yeah, we love this part of the show because we get to see you, not just in your comments on yours, but we get to see you in real person. Our first question comes from David.
Hello, it's David from Watford. I'd like to ask the panel, now that Keir Starmer and Wes Streeting have decided to dump the quango that is NHS England, will they distribute the money from this quango into frontline staff, as they claim, or will they reinvest it in another quango because they realise they can't actually run NHS England without the super state supporting them?
Yeah, thanks for that, David. So should we, I think we should go straight to Dr. Renee on this one. Should we repatriate that money that's gone from that massive quango, that bureaucracy, straight into great doctors and nurses like yourself?
Of course we should, but we won't. And I suspect that we actually won't make all of those people redundant. I think they'll get scared, it'll be too expensive. There are estimates it'll be £800 million, and they won't do it. I've always said to reform the NHS, which it sorely needs, you've got to have a big pair of kahunas.
Do you think this is the right decision, though?
Yes, 100%.
Well, what sort of experiences have you had with NHS England, the bureaucracy? How does that interfere with doctors and nurses?
So it just interferes all the way down. So even to GPs, there's another few layers in between GPs and what actually goes on. You've got different information going to every little bit of it. All of the targets that they keep setting us, we then have to work endlessly to satisfy them, prove we've done it, whilst we could be seeing patients.
Well, Kai, this is a big question for you, because obviously Labour's now going to be looking at how they spend that money. Should the money go back to taxpayers, or should it go to doctors and nurses?
Well, it should be spent across the health system, obviously. And frontline services are clearly where it's most needed. I think there's a bunch of reforms at the minute that the Labour Party and the Labour government is undertaking. And all that money that's saved by these reforms are going to be distributed across government and across government services, hopefully. Now, if, as Renee predicts, that doesn't happen, then that's a damn shame and a stain on the Labour Party and this Labour government.
I mean, we talk about the taxpayer, and I think that's someone who's often ignored in these political discussions, because isn't it atrocious that farmers are being loaded with inheritance tax when there are billions being wasted and spent by mismanagement? And I'm just thinking that our government really ought to think twice before they leap and heap taxes on us. Yeah,
I mean, there's the tax burden on British people is at a record high, and I just can't make sense of that. I can't make sense of a country that is so wealthy. For us, the poorest in society, let's say at least the poorest, are lumped with another stealth tax that seems to be coming just next week. But let's move on. Our second question is from Julie.
Hi, panel. So, my question for you today.
When Trump came into power, he wanted to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare as it was nicknamed. Do you think it's a little bit of a coincidence that since Keir Starmer has met with Donald Trump, he now wants to get rid of NHS England? Does it feel slightly that Donald Trump is actually telling Keir Starmer how to run our country? And actually, would that be such a bad thing to have Donald Trump in charge of the UK?
I love that question. That's brilliant.
Maybe we should have the 51st state be the United Kingdom. I don't know. Great place, Will. What do you think, Will?
Thank you, Don. It's an intriguing question, isn't it? I suspect Donald isn't au fait with the ins and outs of British health policy. But to the second part of the question as to whether or not it would be a good thing, a lot of Donald Trump's policy settings, with the exception, I will say, of tariffs, I think are very good and would be very applicable for the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Alice, what do you think?
So I mean, am I the only patriot here? What are we talking about? We can't give in to the Americans. As a British principle, absolutely not. I, for one, could not stand how the interview between Trump and Zelensky went. I mean, this is like your typical American bullying behaviour. I don't like it. And any talk of Britain...
Can I disagree?
You know, we did not leave the European Union, which is headed towards federal states, to become the 50th.
Well, no, do you know what? I do jest when I say I don't want us to become the 51st state. However, I do think, personally, I know this is really unpopular, by the way, because I know a lot of people are very anti what I'm about to say, but I think Trump handled the Zelensky interview absolutely fantastically. It's exactly what the Americans voted for. They voted for peace through strength. Kai, do you think we should become the 51st state?
You and I...
The depression on his face.
Oh my goodness.
The British people don't want it. We know that.
Yeah, maybe.
The British people don't want to become part of the United States
why?
of America. They don't like Trump. They actually much prefer Zelensky. They don't think he's a dictator.
But on a real...
The data is clear. I don't know why we keep having this conversation with you, who had his MAGA hat on during the inauguration on this show.
I did.
Look, we need to bring that back, actually.
Trump, liking Trump is a fringe view for fringe weirdos.
Don't care. I'm a fringe weirdo. There you have it. I'm a MAGA
fringe weirdo, okay? But Kai's a loser. It doesn't matter because Kai's a loser.
Julie was only asking this question to get you to do the accent.
Right.
I know.
I mean,
Come on, Renee.
just in response to that, it wasn't fringe in America, clearly, because he wiped the ball.
No,
and everything.
that's not what I was saying.
No, I know. However, the thing is, I don't think people really want Trump to run our country, but I think what the sentiment is showing is that people want a leader who is going to take unpopular decisions.
And can I add,
you know what I always think?
Sorry.
I would have dreamed to see Margaret Thatcher sit down with Trump, because I doubt he would have got away with the kind of behaviour he did when he was with Starmer. And this is the issue. Would I envisage for Britain is not some like washed out American like Trumpy stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I
want
did think it
true
was
British,
I did think it was
patriotic,
pathetic
sensible
watching. And I agree with you, Alice. I think it was pathetic watching Keir Starmer squirm as he pulled out that letter, you know. It was all theatrical because we know what he thinks of Donald Trump behind the scenes. We know what David Lammy thinks. Renee, it's just, you know, of course, Keir Starmer's playing politics,
I'm going to give some credit to Starmer because I actually think that the way he handled that with the letter from the King was genius because he understood the beast that he was dealing with and what would, float his boat. However, I think that backfired the very next day when he suddenly said to Zelensky, come to Sandringham and meet the King. Actually, they're not that rare, invitations to meet the King.
I sort of loved that. To me, that's so British. It's like, yes, of course, invited. Invites the next. Like, I love that.
I think even a lot of British people who don't like Trump personally have a grudging respect for a leader who so unashamedly puts their country first.
Yeah.
And I think when you see policies like the Chagos deal, when you see, this sort of international human rights law approach to governance, you go, it would actually be really nice if our leader unashamedly put this country first.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, Cluddy here, I think is maybe Cluddy, flipping good impression of Trump. Well, thank you for that. It's been a very long piece of work that I've been trying to work on here. KK says you're talking out your backside, Kai. We do not want to become the 51st state of America. Of course we don't want to become. It's just a bit of fun when you say that, isn't it? But what we mean is that we like Trump's leadership. I like his strong America first, and I wish there was a British politician, a prime minister, that would stand up for Britain.
Alex,
because we seem to be missing that, don't we?
Are you not worried they think you're Kai?
Oh, yeah, well, they might do, actually. Please don't. No, come on, let's not get confused. Can we get my name strap back up, please? Just in case the audience think I'm Guy Wilshire. That'll be the end of my career.
I do think it is. I think the Trump-Canada joke
it's
is
coming.
funny.
Look, there it is. All right, there it is. Yeah. Thanks to our director for that.
I do think it is a bit odd that the Canada joke is now dragging on as long as it is. I don't really understand the motivation behind it.
I'll leave this as the final thing. My understanding of why Trump's putting this Canada thing and this Greenland thing is because he's doing what a normal business tactic would be, which is to put the anchor at the very far end of the table, so everything else seems reasonable. That's quite clever business.
I think he does want Greenland.
But listen, sorry, we have to move on because otherwise you guys are going to get bored of hearing us spiel on about Trump. Final question comes from Lee.
Hi, Lee here from Bedford. So, Sir Keir Starmer keeps going on about this coalition of the willing for a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. Russia has said it's a big red line and it won't have NATO troops inside Ukraine. Does the panel think that Sir Keir Starmer is just speaking a whole load of hot air?
I think Keir Starmer knows that when you're a Prime Minister and you're on your uppers, there's nothing like a bit of war talk to get you up in the polls. And it's worked. And I think the longer he can keep distracting us with meetings by Zoom with 21 countries, coalition of the willing, the less we will focus on the disaster that is home.
And I think as well, there is something deep within every British Prime Minister that they want to have their Churchill moment. And I think for Starmer, even The Economist was fawning over him the other day. The front page of The Economist had Winston Starmer on the front page.
Spare me.
Does that make you feel sick?
It did actually make me feel a bit sick. But the fact of the matter is, I think this is all part of that I want to have my Churchill moment.
Yeah, go on, Kai.
Renee, come on. Are you really saying that he is acting up to this image of what a British Prime Minister should be?
Yes.
Rather than actually rising to the moment. And I think you'll find that the British public have really quite appreciated his leadership in Europe and across the world in the last 2 weeks.
Wait till their council tax bills land.
No, but regardless of that, he's leading.
Regardless of that.
He's leading. Yeah. Whether or not you like it.
Where's he leading us?
He's leading Europe. He's leading the world. And you could not imagine that. 12 months ago, you would not be able to even imagine a world where the UK is leading the world.
Well, that's the thing. The thing is, I think we do have to make a distinction between Britain on a geopolitical scale and then our domestic affairs. And what I don't like, and we've seen so much of in the last few weeks, is this complete elision between the two, where we can make fun of our own Prime Minister on the international stage. No. When Keir Starmer is in a meeting with other world leaders, he is representing Britain. So I don't care that I disagree with him on basically everything he says. At that moment, you know, our collective identity as a nation takes precedence over my personal feelings. Why don't other people feel this way?
Yeah, we're not.
I'll just say, I mean, listen, my problem with this coalition of the willing has always been, goes back quite a while ago when they first had these security meetings in Downing Street and all these leaders got together. My big problem with it, just very briefly, is that we are prioritising a foreign country's national security before we can even secure our own borders. I find that despicable for all those politicians, particularly in Germany, where there's been terrorist attack after terrorist attack, for us to not have an answer to that first before we start thinking about a foreign country's... I appreciate people want Ukraine, and it's terrible what Russia's done to Ukraine. However, we also do need to think about Britain and putting Britain first for a change.
But the other thing is the reality just doesn't match the rhetoric. Even if we genuinely wanted to support Ukraine and Europe genuinely wanted to support Ukraine, there isn't the industrial or military capacity to be able to pick up the slack left by the US. We can talk a big game all we want, but the fact of the matter is Russia is producing more ammunition than the whole of the European Union combined, and it's bullets and it's ammo that wins wars. It's not talk.
OK, well, a big change again from that very hot debate. We wanted to make your spring spectacular, as always, in our latest Great British giveaway. It's your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you'll need.
Spring has sprung with a Great British giveaway, and we're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, more on Keir Starmer's coalition of the willing dream. Solution or fantasy? I know James here wrote in, he said that, please can we stop calling it the coalition of the willing, but it's their language, James, I have to use it, sorry. Plus, Londoners have been subjected to a far-left propaganda campaign, coordinated protests against Elon Musk. What on earth are they expecting to achieve as usual? You're with GB News. It's the Saturday 5. See you after the break.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As steak and ale is the most popular one. That's the one that's in the British Pie Awards. We've got chicken. We do a just steak. All the steak is slow cooked overnight, and then we shred it and mix it with Tracy's signature gravy. We've also now been able to put fruit pies on, and we do quiches as well.
This family-run pie shop in Dinnington is going for a big win at the British Pie Awards. The busy South Yorkshire store has only been open for 6 weeks, and already it's hoping for a prize for its pies.
It's British tradition. You know, it lets especially independent people like us to get his name out there, especially if we win the award. Everybody loves a good pie, especially with we do meals with the mash and the chips and the peas and the gravy. We'll put baked beans on if they want them. It's just tradition, isn't it? Everybody loves a good pie.
For the customers here, pies are one of Britain's best dishes.
They're always full of goodness, aren't they? Hearty, filling, and you could put them with so many things, different vegetables, different types of potatoes. Yeah, just good all-rounder.
Feel-good food, innit? Pies, yeah. It's not like takeaway food, it's just feel-good food. Feel at home, you know.
If it's got a nice filling and a nice pastry, there's nothing better. But just like them, the easy meals. My family love all the pies here. I've come in about 3 times a week this week, especially the quiches that you can see coming out of the oven. They're freshly made, you can take them home and freeze them.
So here we go, we've got the Handmade Pie Company's steak and ale pie, the one that's been entered for the awards. Let's give it a try. That is absolutely delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Okay, welcome back to the Saturday 5. Don't forget to message us on gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the 5. Anything can happen in Ask the 5. We get the most random questions and we always try our best to answer them.
Can I ask a random question?
Well, why not? Go on.
Why are you drinking Guinness?
Because on Monday. It's St Patrick's Day, and both Will and I are observing it a little early. Yep, cheers. We're already halfway through our pints.
Well, cheers to you.
Yeah, cheers, everybody. Cheers. I hope you're having a nice weekend at home and having a good pint as well. OK, let's have a look at some of the questions, shall we? Yeah, well, Kai's already down here, so don't blame him. Stephen Kenny has said Alice's accent wouldn't be out of place in the royal family. Very refined, Alice, very refined. Future royal, perhaps, who knows? Jeff says Kai needs to get out more and talk to real people. I could do more. We wanted Trump. Well, yes, he did speak to a police officer. We wanted Trump, and this Starmer Churchill is fake. Yes, you're absolutely right. We do want a Trump in this country to get things moving. Turn the boats around. Guess what he's going to say, or she. Exactly, Alex. This government should be securing our borders first before worrying about other countries. Now, this is, for me, that's a really important thing, because we can't care about someone else's national security before our own. Surely, Will.
Yeah, that's right. It's
just quickly, because you spoke to a former Australian Prime Minister, Tony Abbott. Is that right?
I did.
What did you think about it?
Tony Abbott was the person who came up with the term "stop the boats," and he had cut through on this issue. And the key thing he actually said, and I pushed him on this, he said, you know what I would do? I would just intercept the boats in the middle of the night, and then I would take them back and drop them back onto the shores of France. And I said, well, Tony, what happens if the French don't particularly like that, or if they say you're interfering in our sovereign territory? He said, so what? What are they going to do?
Quite right.
It's a quite fair point. What are they going to do?
Quite right.
What do you think about Rishi saying that we shouldn't have used the language, perhaps stop the boats?
I wasn't aware he said that, but I think it's that type of simple language that has cut through that is really important. Like Abbott is one of the great people at simplifying complexity in political communication.
It delivers as well, and I think that's the problem. Rishi Sunak knew he could never deliver on that promise, which is why he now reneged on it, because he was never going to leave the ECHO, he was never going to secure our borders, he was never going to tow the boats back to France.
Now he says we should.
Well, now, of course, the epiphany happens after you lose the election. He's got no one to hold him accountable, eh? Jean-Paul Parker here says they have charged us and given away the Chagos Islands, UK and Wales is next. Kai, we're going to give you away, thank God. Eh? Maybe we should sell off Wales. No, I don't endorse that. That's a joke. Obviously, I love Wales. Beautiful country.
You could see the emails coming in.
I am joking, but I absolutely adore Wales.
On a serious note, there is an article today about the Maldives now actually being taken over in a battle between India and China because it's such important land. The Chagos is the same. It's territory that the Chinese want, and this is how they're going to get it.
Well, we haven't talked enough about Chagos, but we will again soon, trust me. This week, though, Londoners have been subjected to a far-left propaganda campaign, as detailed in journalist Charlotte Gill's recent X-post, which document coordinated protests against Elon Musk. Gill's investigation found UK activist groups led by donkeys and group Everyday Racism to be involved in the campaign. But critical questions arise over the alleged involvement of German groups, and I can't pronounce this correctly, but I think it's Adenauer, SRP. Adenauer, thank you, and Political Beauty, air quotes for those two, by the way. Now, it's important to know that the left's major objection to Musk getting involved in British politics is that it's foreign interference. But if it turns out these groups in Germany are engaged in spreading far-left propaganda here in the UK, shouldn't the British public be made aware? Not only of their sheer hypocrisy, but also be made aware that their opinions are being influenced by foreign campaigners. Now, I put out a post yesterday because I saw some of these videos and I thought, what has this got to do with Britain? First of all, there's all these attacks. So there was a caller on another programme the other day who said that he had been suffering road rage incidents from people coming up to him, flipping him off, doing Nazi salutes at his Tesla. And this kind of unhinged leftism is exactly the toxic mind virus that's infiltrated Britain under the last 14 years and now, unfortunately, the next 4. Is that right, Will?
It is right. I agree with all of that. You won't be surprised to hear that I still think, on balance, they should be allowed to post this sort of stuff. But I also think there should be some sort of a source that says this is being financed by ... as you have with all political communications in this country. Because make no mistake, this is a political communication.
It is, but it's just Trump derangement syndrome by proxy, isn't it? They can't anymore exercise this Trump because they realise nothing's going to happen. So now they're going for Elon because he's the next nearest thing to Trump. It's just ridiculous. It's childish. it's cult-like, and all of these people involved in this week have been, I think, the leftover CND women that have now resurrected their campaigning spirit.
But by the way, Trump must be loving this because it's taking all the heat off him.
Yeah.
He must be absolutely loving the use of Elon as effectively his lightning rod for criticism.
Well, you know, Peter actually just messaged in and saying, Alex, who is behind funding these groups and why isn't the government stopping it? Go on,
It was interesting because Led by Donkeys, if I remember correctly, was one of the groups that used to follow us when I was on the Brexit march, and they would kind of trail after us with these massive banners, and we were like in the middle of Sunderland. And it was rather odd, and, you know, their funding remains ambiguous, but this group is obviously... something that stokes up extremism.
Well, Kai, this is the thing, right? The public deserve to know who's funding these... They are far left. Calling Elon Musk a Nazi and putting him saying that salute was a Nazi. I don't believe. I think honestly, I genuinely believe you've got to be quite low IQ to believe that that hand wave that he did off saying, you know, be with you.
IQ. Love that.
Well, it is. It would
Absolutely.
my heart goes out to I think his words.
The mental gymnastics.
To say that was a Nazi salute is a complete and utter ridiculous stretch, isn't it?
No, it's not. And the difference between all the things that you've been talking about, led by donkeys, blah, blah, blah.
It's true. They were there with their placards.
No, but we're talking about a difference both in kind and in scale. Now, the reason people are angry about Elon Musk's involvement and funding into political causes both in the US and here is the fact that he is the richest man on Earth.
So what?
Worth 9 figures plus. The level of influence that buys you in today's society, in today's politics, is disgusting and would disgust most UK citizens.
Can I tell you why you're right?
Unlike all of you.
You are absolutely... I agree with you. But do you know what? This is going on in this global cabal that we now have. How much influence do you think Bill Gates buys himself every single day?
Exactly.
When he can open Prime Minister's doors around the world. For every dollar that Bill Gates invests in his good causes, he makes another 10 back.
Let's just note before you speak, Alice, because I think it's a really important context for the audience to know, is that there was a meeting between Keir Starmer and Bill Gates, and we are yet to see the meeting notes at the end of this. At least with Elon Musk, you know where you stand. Whether you like it or not, you know where you stand. Go ahead, Alice.
I also think there is something to be said about this rise of technocracy. And we're seeing this in the US, and, you know, people love Trump on the right, but he is completely siding with the technocrats, with the big Silicon Valley bosses. And personally, if you look at the way these people envisage the world and the sort of digitalisation, even bordering on transhumanism, which has been talked about in the open, so I'm not saying anything conspiratorial here, but it's true and it's happening. And I think we have to think very carefully about the powers that back Trump and the people that he's aligning themselves with.
This is a really interesting.
And I say this as a conservative.
Question. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry,
Transgenderism.
Transhumanism.
Well, no, let me finish, Kai. Transgenderism is actually one of the steps on the way to transhumanism. It's exactly what it is and why it's being pushed by Soros, who's the money behind it. You've got Bezos, the money behind it. You're right. All of these people have an interest in pushing this.
Yeah, and Trump too now. He's siding with them, may I add. If you look at the deals he's making, the people who are backing him now, they are the same people who are pushing this agenda. So, yeah, if you're right-wing and you love Trump, think again.
Well, let's talk about this transhumanism thing, because there was that protest that you saw in your trigger tantrum, Renee, where there was liquid latex poured over the Tesla robot.
The Nazi robot.
Oh, that's right, yes, I beg your pardon, the swastika robot. You know, there's a debate to be had here, which I think we haven't talked about before. This could be the first time we ever speak about it on this channel, which is, would you rather have robots filling the jobs that immigrants would do in this country, or would you rather immigration continues to go higher?
I'd rather British people fill them.
But, OK, well, I agree with that.
They can't be
Hang on 1 second. I agree with that. No, that's rubbish. Let's not talk down the British public. However, Renee, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to have more immigration, if you had to choose only 2, or robots doing those jobs? What would your preference be?
Well, if I had that binary choice, which I wouldn't, it would be robots at the moment, just because we know that robots don't have a culture that might rape our women. Having said that, however, you know what the biggest motivator is to get a job, Kai? Not having any money.
That's right.
Well, so I think a mixture of taxes as well. I mean, if you're seeing taxes and income taxes rise at the state that they're rising, what motivation what incentive do you have? They earn more on welfare benefits than they do as if they were paid a wage job.
Correct.
I mean, it's human instinct. You want to have as much money as
But eventually
possible
those
to provide.
taxes are going to be so high that they're going to start affecting the middle of that thing until in the end they don't want to work anymore.
Yeah,
The super rich are leaving the country. There will be no one left.
Yeah.
It's a Ponzi scheme.
100%.
Absolutely is.
What do you think about this Tesla robot stuff, Will? I mean, I think this is quite an interesting debate, and this is the debate we're going to have in the future. And people watching at home, your children will be having this debate. Do we want to have more human beings imported into a country, or do we want to build robots to do those jobs? What would you prefer, Will?
Or do we want a mix of both, which is sort of the plan?
Nuance doesn't go well on that.
Hang on. You don't insult our audience. Our audience is extremely intelligent people. They are able to understand nuance. Don't talk down.
I never insulted the audience.
OK, all right.
Robots don't need school places or GP places or hospital beds.
Kai, you were so popular with the audience up until that point. I'm just... Look, I think this is like basically worrying about the introduction of the production line when that was coming in the early part of the 20th century or late 19th century. The fact is it's inevitable to some extent, and it's how we manage that transition is what's going to be really effective. The one little thing I would say, Renee, when we're talking about framing this immigration conversation, and I agree with you, obviously, we're on the same page, but it's not immigration there's necessarily the problem per se. We're not talking about sexual assault when it comes from people from Australia or New Zealand or the US or Italy or wherever. It is where they are coming from that is the issue.
Whilst I agree with you there, and you know it, there's a bigger problem with immigration, which is we don't have an infrastructure wherever the people are coming from to deal with it.
Agree.
Yeah, OK, well, coming up, Will is paying tribute to his hero from history. And I want to know, is numpty, come on, please put this in the comments, a term of discrimination? This is Saturday 5 on GB News. We've got going up to a video next on the weather.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Storm Lawrence brings some unsettled weather across western parts of Europe, heavy rain and some thunderstorms. A little more settled across parts of Greece, but temperatures are going to cool off. Highs of around 20 to 21 Celsius on Sunday, but turning much cooler through the middle part of the week. As we head further west, we can see there's plenty of showers, some of these heavy bringing in some thunderstorms, and Storm Lawrence just this low out across the Azores, bringing in some heavy outbreaks of rain later on Sunday and into Monday. Largely settled through the middle part of the week, but turning cooler for Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News. Full T's and C's apply.
Okay, welcome back to the Saturday 5. We're all having too much to drink here. Please get in contact with us at gbnews.com/yoursay, and thank you for your brilliant messages so far. We try and read as many of them as we can. Let's have a quick look here. So Mari said, this is the lead up to my last part of the segment. Anyone can be a numpty. Very inclusive. Why don't you try it out, Alex? Well, Kai, you can be a bit of a numpty, can't you?
Me?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Diane D says, Alex, you numpty. Of course it's not a term of discrimination, it's a term of endearment.
It is.
And Bashful says, Dear Fab Five, numpty is neither, it's a term of endearment. Everyone enjoys loving their numpty. There's another comment there I'm definitely not reading up because I'll never be allowed back here. And of course, don't forget to... Oh, has the vote closed?
Yeah.
Because the vote might have
Would you like me
closed.
to tell you
Well,
the
I think we might have the results coming up for you shortly.
Okay.
Shortly. Well, we'll come back to that. It's now time for High Five, where we discuss our favourite moments from the past week. Will, what have you got for us?
Well, it's the Ides of March today, Alex. It's the anniversary of the second most well-known political assassination in history. Obviously, the first being Alex Armstrong getting rid of Darren Grimes on Saturday 5. And I want to pay tribute to Julius Caesar. In fact, I think we actually have exclusive footage of the Ides of March. GB News has got a hot scoop. Can we get this footage up?
Take your hand off me.
What are you waiting for? Now! Now! Now!
Yeah, spoiler alert, Julius Caesar is unfortunately stabbed by multiple of his senators in the Ides of March, if you hadn't read history. But our director Jack says it's a fantastic show and you should watch it. Obviously, other shows are available.
Great show. I will never forgive Brutus, but Julius Caesar, I think, just shades Churchill as the greatest man in history.
Wow.
He was the greatest speaker, he was the greatest writer, he was the greatest military general, he was the greatest leader, he was a pants man. Your wife, if you're a senator, we were not safe around Julius Caesar.
There you go.
I don't think there's been anyone else in human history who was as good or across such a wide range of different things as Caesar.
Wow. I mean, I'm fast. I went to Rome not that long ago, and it's beautiful, beautiful city. It really, really is. Go on, Renee.
OK, so as a mother, I'm going to appeal to every single mother that exists at the moment, because, you know, we always have that toy, the toy that cannot be lost for anything in the world, the toy that must never be lost. A little boy lost that toy. There it is. Little elephant, and a butcher managed to reunite that with the 3-year-old who lost it. As you can see, we'll meet again. What a fabulous story. Every child has one of these. And I just want to add into this that my daughter created a word for that when she lost hers. She said to me, "Mummy, thank goodness you found that, or it would have been a disastrophe."
Oh, wow, what a great word.
I think we should use that word.
I like that.
Disaster.
You know, I had a lost, when I was very, I was like 5, lost teddy bear. I was in Egypt of all the places. And they actually mailed it back to my family because, I mean, how good was that, right?
That's
how good was that? So there is kindness out there as well, which is really lovely to see.
With these toys, they're so precious. Ours is called Big Bun.
Oh, there you go.
And credit to our production team. We'll meet again is a cracking strapline.
That's very good. So our producer Marie, I think, wrote that one.
Yeah, it's a goodie.
Isn't she? OK, on to me. We've talked a lot about numpties, but a long-serving Metropolitan Police Sergeant has failed in his attempt to sue the force for discrimination because a more senior officer called him a numpty. Can you imagine suing someone, suing your employer over the word numpty? So, Kai, would you sue me if I called you a numpty on this panel multiple times?
No, I wouldn't. But you know what I did a few weeks ago is look through the Ofcom guidelines on what's acceptable, mild, medium and strong.
What are you about
Let me
to
tell
say?
you, it's quite a read. Quite fun.
Wait, is numpty on there? Is numpty on the Ofcom guidelines?
No,
If
it's not.
I won't see you next week.
It's not. It's not. No, numpty's not on there.
Interesting.
Not insulting enough.
I regularly use the word numpty with my 6-year-old when she does something silly, and I say, "Oh, you numpty," and it is a term of endearment.
OK, well, Richard Hill has written in here, just literally 1 minute ago, numpty is not a term of endearment. He's going against the grain here, because a lot of you have said it's a term of endearment. So I'd love to see what you say about this. It's not a term of endearment in the context I use it. Numpty, noun, numpties, plural noun, a stupid or ineffectual person. Confused numpties have little idea what they're talking about. What a complete numpty. Well, we do have a regular slot on this panel for one of those people.
But is this not indicative of the completely snowflake society we now have, when a policeman can't cope with being called a numpty? I mean, I'm sure he gets called much worse out on the streets if he goes out there.
OK, well, Kai, what have you got for us this week?
Well, in keeping with tradition, I want to dive into beaver-related data.
We do laugh beavers on this channel.
And it turns out that the beloved furry beaver is in hot supply in the UK. We've got a majority of Brits supporting reintroducing beavers into the UK. Like, how brilliant is that? Let's dive into our wetland beavers and recent data from YouGov that shows, if we can see the graph.
I want to see a beaver.
When asked which animals... We don't have one.
No, all right. We don't have one tonight, unfortunately.
I'll tell you. When asked which animals the Brits would like to introduce to the UK, compared to what they said in 2019, beavers come up top compared to birds of prey, wild cats, moose, wild boars. So it's beaver season in the UK, and I think we're all pro, aren't we?
As much as I love beavers, I'd like to introduce lions.
I want wolves.
What, in Labour suburbs?
That wasn't in the survey.
Just in his
lions. Yeah.
Well, wolves
or brown bears.
Wolves were in the survey.
Well, I heard that was it a few weeks ago that a beaver built a dam quicker than the Canadian government? Was it the Canadian government?
No, it was...
Check.
Right. Oh, wait, we've got the graph, everybody. Hold the phone. We've got the beaver graph. Look at that.
Oh, look at that.
Well, I think that might have actually just trashed your opinion. Because I think beavers are third on that.
Look at that public opinion.
Yeah, birds of prey. There you go.
Beavers, 66% want beavers reintroduced to the UK.
It was beavers that built a dam in 2 days that they'd been trying to build, humans, for 7 years.
Wow, there you go.
Guys.
Bring back beaver. Coming back to Alice now. What have you got for us, Alice?
I'm bringing Rome into the 21st century.
Yes, why not?
Pope Francis is on the mend, according to a recently published Vatican statement. So very grateful to God for that. And please do keep in your prayers, everybody.
I think that is brilliant news, of course. When anyone recovers from something that would take most 88-year-olds off to meet their maker, I think it's really good news.
He's got powerful friends on his side, in fairness.
Absolutely.
The Lord and Saviour.
Of
course, the Lord and Saviour is sitting next to him, I'm sure. But it's good news to hear when, obviously, the Pope has, how long is this Pope? Does anyone know? Has anyone got a good Catholic in the room here? here. Any good Catholics, Alex?
He's 88, isn't he?
Yeah, he was
88. And he's been in hospital now for nearly a month.
So he's still ill, so please do, keep him in your prayers. But
I mean, if you think about this man, whatever you think, there are millions of Catholics around the world who will be praying every minute of the day for his, recovery. And so I think good news is something that we don't get enough of.
Did you see that awful woke concave movie?
Yes. I loved it until the end.
Yeah, until the end.
Did you read
I haven't
the book?
seen it yet.
Did either of you read the book?
I didn't read that book, actually.
It follows the book.
Well, there's a lot of there's a lot of
woke movie
chatter.
follows awful woke book.
Great woke movie, great woke book. Verily.
So
completely disagree.
Bacon, I won't read his last name, says, does Kai realise what he's just said? I want to dive into beaver. Stephen Kenny says, I would like to dive into beaver too. OK.
That's the joke.
OK, coming up. Don't dive into beaver just yet. There's more of a show. Right? Coming up, more of our trigger tantrums and our latest results. You've got the results coming into the poll. You're not going to want to miss that. This is Saturday 5 Extra on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead into next week, for most of us it should be fairly dry. We'll continue to see some spells of sunshine, and towards the middle of the next week actually it will start to turn a little bit warmer. Reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure. It's not really going to go far over the next few days, but we still have this weak weather front, which will be a focus of some patchy rain as it sinks its way southwards across Scotland overnight. Further south, that's where we see the clearest of the skies, and under the clear skies, a widespread frost developing could see temperatures in the countryside as low as -4 or -5 degrees. Also, good to see a few patches of fog first thing, but they will quickly clear as we move into Sunday morning. And then a closer look across Scotland, first thing, we will see a few showers just moving in across the very far north, but for much of Scotland it should be a fairly bright start to the day. That weak front will still be around across Northern Ireland and Northern England, so a risk of a few spots of rain here, and also a fair bit of cloud for the Midlands and parts of Wales, but the further south you are, a fairly bright and sunny start today, albeit rather cold. As we move through the course of the day, quite a lot of the country seeing the cloud bubble up. We'll hang on to probably the best of the sunshine across the very far south of England and maybe also parts of western Scotland. And that cloud will be just thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, but most of us remaining dry. Temperatures on Sunday similar to what we will be seeing today. Highs potentially up to 10 or 11 degrees where we see the sunniest skies. Into Monday, a fair bit of cloud around as we start the day, but that will begin to break up a little bit as we move through into the afternoon. Best of the sunshine on Monday across parts of northern Scotland, maybe later on across East Anglia. And then it's really from Tuesday into Wednesday where we see increasing amounts of sunshine, and by Wednesday some of us seeing temperatures in the mid-teens.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in. We've just had a very loud noise here in the studio. I don't know what it is. Please get in. Yeah, that's the gas releasing from Kai. gbnews.com/USA. Thank you for your messages so far. Let's have a quick look at what you've said here. Okay, wow. Beavers have got you guys very excited. Or some of you not so excited. Josh Fitzgerald says, no beavers for me. Is it a face palm and a rainbow? Maybe we'll see there why. Grumpy Grandad back again. again, nothing wrong with a good beaver. Unfortunately, you don't see too many of them these days. I'm going to get sacked after this show. There's no way. Darren's going to get his revenge because I won't be here next week. Okay. Don't forget, sorry, it's just the kind of time of day. Please don't forget to vote for your favourite topic, GB News. It's last seconds. I mean, it really is last seconds to vote. No. Is this the final vote?
No, this is.
Can my producer tell me? No, this is not the final vote. We've got more to come. So please try and get to your votes in there if you want to change that. It's going to close not at 8:30, but at the end of the show. Okay, right. Alice, would you like to tell us a little bit about your tantrum?
My tantrum.
Yes, your triggered tantrum.
Of course. So, Channel 4's programme, I believe it was called. It had this amazing name.
Was it the boats?
It was the boat one. It was like send them back from where they came from, or something ridiculous like that.
This is with our friend Corey Dobbs.
We've got a clip. Let's watch it.
Places we're going to. Dream outcome, come back alive.
6 opinionated Brits.
People can call me racist, but my views are just basic common sense.
Are going on an extraordinary journey.
You don't get that in South Yorkshire.
Yeah, shout out to Chloe Dobbs there, a good friend of ours, good friend of the show. Oh, a bit of a chest shot there from my director. Very flattering. Alice, tell us a little bit about this clip.
Well, it's not being renewed, the show, which I find quite funny because I think... Surprise. I mean, I think in the show, I believe they sort of retrace the perilous journey of coming to England across the Channel. And, yeah, apparently it doesn't very much interest Brits, which is rightly so considering the massive crises we face.
It could also be showing people how to make the journey across Europe.
But also, like, what would a second series do? Like, they've done the journey, you know, what is it? Maybe you could actually do the deportations journey, doing the one back. Yeah. That would actually be something that would get the audience.
Yeah, re-immigration.
I'd watch that. That'd be great.
That would be a GB News special, perhaps. I'm happy to host it, just in case my boss is watching.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are.
And we can get Rupert Lowe on as the you know, kind of co-presenter. I think
maybe there could be a Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage fight-off and see who can deport the most foreign criminals.
Now we're cooking.
Listen, anyway, so Mary has put a very important question in here. She said, Alex, can you do a Donald Trump beaver impression?
Oh, Mary, any opportunity, we've got to put the beavers back, because without the beavers, we cannot have a beautiful economy. With the beavers, I think we'll bring them back. I don't think Kai's going to let us have the beaver.
And talking about Kai, can we do your trigger tantrum, please?
My tantrum is, you know, Elon Musk has nothing.
Here we go.
I mean,
here we go.
Let's see this video.
Prepare yourselves.
He's done this interview recently.
Call to action. You're hearing a call to action.
Yeah.
You giving up your other stuff? I mean, how are you running your other businesses?
With great difficulty. Yeah, I mean...
But there's no turning back, you're saying?
I'm just here trying to make government more efficient.
I mean, I don't know what Kai has to say about this. Go on, entertain us.
Sorry. Elon has nothing left. He's lost his companies. He's lost his wives.
What do you mean he's lost his companies? He's not the richest man in the world.
He's lost control of his companies, as he just said. He's so indebted that he's had to ask Donald Trump, the President of the United States.
He's the richest man in the world.
How did he do that? By leveraging the stocks that he had to gain money to buy.
Hang on a second, because Elon Musk isn't here to defend himself.
You know that's how business literally works.
Elon Musk is not here to defend himself, and just important to say that obviously his wealth will fluctuate with markets, as many billionaires will.
Goodness me, who's paying you?
I mean,
unfortunately, not Elon Musk. Otherwise, my Saturdays might look a little different.
I know we have very little time left, but can we just look at the grift that he's resorted to? To pay for the ridiculous expenses.
How about no?
No, come on.
All right, go on then.
Trump selling Oh.
I don't even know if we have this, Kai, because I don't think you've prepared yourself enough for the show. So Kai's...
You can check the spreadsheet.
I mean, my director will tell me. But I believe Kai wants to put up a picture of Elon Musk's car being advertised-ish outside the White House with Donald Trump. However, I will hasten to add, for the sake of balance, that Joe Biden also held the similar event with electric vehicles outside his White House too.
Yeah.
So,
Did Joe Biden have a sheet showing the literal prices of different models of cars?
Oh, is it the prices that upset you?
It's the presidency of the United States being used as car salespeople.
This is the hypocrisy of the leftist position. On one hand, they're saying that he's grifting by working with the government here, and on the other, they're saying he's losing money hand over fist by doing this. You can't have it both ways.
Well, no, there's more than both ways, because earlier on you were complaining that the richest man in the world was getting access to government.
Well, I want to bring Alice into
hang on,
this.
1 minute he's just not very good at business, he's having to leisure to do this. Then he's the richest man and that's the problem. Then he's having to use the president to make himself richer. I mean, you're so confused in your argument.
Those are all the same thing.
No, they're not.
Alice, what do you make of this? What do you make of all of this
Elon
Elon Musk-Trump saga? What do you make of it all?
Well, I don't have very much sympathy for Elon Musk, particularly. Neither do for Trump, to be honest. I'm more concerned about Britain. Britain is my only concern.
There you go.
It is my nation, it is my country. I want to put Britain first. So
OK, all right.
have your debates.
All right.
There's 3 of us here, actually.
I can't count.
Peter's written in and said, Alex, maybe Elon Musk's
As I said,
boring company can help the beavers. Perhaps they can. Maybe it's now time to put the Elon Musk and beavers and Trump aside and give you the moment you've all been waiting for, which is the final results for our poll. Here we go. Well, they're two-tiered justice, 56%. We need to talk about Nigel, joint 15% with anti-Semitism in the NHS, 15%. Labour showing up the Tories, unsurprisingly, on 1%, and criminals being protected, a close second, joint second, and criminals therefore with Alice's.
You know, you do better when it's just voting for you, Carl, rather than your policy.
Last
week I got 6%.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
It wasn't my
anymore.
It wasn't my
We've got a better audience tuned in now. They know not to vote for Kai. Well, I just want to say a big thank you to all of our guests and co-hosts tonight, our lovely audience at home, and thank you for joining in the fun. Next up, it's the brilliant Ben Leo. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week on the Saturday 5.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead into next week, for most of us it should be fairly dry. We'll continue to see some spells of sunshine, and towards the middle of the next week, actually, it will start to turn a little bit warmer. Reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure. It's not really going to go far over the next few days, but we still have this weak weather front, which will be a focus of some patchy rain as it sinks its way southwards across Scotland overnight. Further south, that's where we see the clearest of the skies, and under the clear skies, a widespread frost developing. Could see temperatures in the countryside as low as -4 or -5 degrees. Also, could see a few patches of fog first thing, but they will quickly clear as we move into Sunday morning. And then a closer look across Scotland, first thing, we will see a few showers just moving in across the very far north, but for much of Scotland it should be a fairly bright start to the day. That weak front will still be around across Northern Ireland and Northern England, so a risk of a few spots of rain here, and also a fair bit of cloud for the Midlands and parts of Wales, but the further south you are, a fairly bright and sunny start today, albeit rather cold. As we move through the course of the day, quite a lot of the country seeing the cloud bubble up. We'll hang on to probably the best of the sunshine across the very far south of England and maybe also parts of western Scotland. And that cloud will be just thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, but most of us remaining dry. Temperatures on Sunday similar to what we will be seeing today. Highs potentially up to 10 or 11 degrees where we see the sunniest skies. Into Monday, a fair bit of cloud around as we start the day, but that will begin to break up a little bit as we move through into the afternoon. Best of the sunshine on Monday across parts of northern Scotland, maybe later on across East Anglia. And then it's really from Tuesday into Wednesday where we see increasing amounts of sunshine, and by Wednesday some of us seeing temperatures in the mid-teens.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network